I'd like to start this meeting. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody here in chambers and those who might be participating via the internet. Tonight is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Kingman City Council held at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, February 17th, 2026. We'd like to turn some time over to our city clerk for a roll call.
Mayor Watkins.
Present.
Vice Mayor Samley. Here. Councilmember Dykens.
Here.
Councilmember Savage.
Here.
Councilmember Staley.
Present.
Councilmember Walker.
Here.
Councilmember Ward.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We'd like to invite those who would like to participate with us to stand for our invocation, which will be given by Pastor Tony Henry of Kingman Nazarene Church, after which we will have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to pray. Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we just come before you today with humble hearts as we prepare to begin this city council meeting. We thank you for our wonderful country and our beautiful city. We ask for your guidance and wisdom for our mayor, vice mayor, and each council member as they make decisions that impact our community. Grant them clarity of thought, compassion for their constituents, and the courage to act justly. May all of the dialogue be filled with respect and collaboration, and may the outcomes reflect your will for our wonderful city. Surround them with your peace and help us all to work together for the common good of one another. And it is in your name that we pray. Amen. Thank you, Father.
Amen. I will lead us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The council may go into executive session for legal counsel in accordance with ARS 38-431.03A3 to discuss any agenda item. The following items may be discussed, considered, and decisions made relating thereto. First, item number 1, awards and recognition. 1A, Women Making History Proclamation. And I always enjoy reading this, and I'm proud of the women in our lives and the huge difference they make. I'd like to read this. Whereas American women from all walks of life have improved their communities and our nation, standing resolute in the face of adversity and overcoming obstacles to realize their full measure of success. And American women play a critical economic, cultural, and social role in every sphere of our nation's life. Beyond serving as a vital part of the labor force, American women have served as early leaders in the forefront of every progressive social change movement, securing their own right of suffrage and equal opportunity, and contributing to movements which secure the rights of people of all races, classes, and ethnic backgrounds. And we honor and carry forth the legacy of the women who have shaped our nation as we teach our daughters to persevere through obstacles and inspire them to reach for their highest aspirations and achieve true equality. Now therefore, I, Ken Watkins, Mayor of the City of Kingman, do hereby proclaim the month of March to be designated as Women's History Month, and specifically designate Sunday, March 1st, 2026, as Women Making History Day. And in doing so, urge all citizens to join me in honoring the history and contributions of American women and the important roles they have played in the growth of our nation, state, and our city. And of course, I have signed it, and of course, our city clerk, Annie Meredith, has signed it also. We appreciate this. Are there any? Yes, if you'd like to come forward, we'd like to have a photo with you if that's possible. Council?
Put you guys right front and center. Short ones in front, huh? The other side of the chair? Balance. Balance.
Good
She's
point.
got balance.
Once again, ladies, congratulations on all your organizations. Having this for us. Glad to give you that. Thank you. We'll see you March 1st.
Thank you.
Thanks, Council. Item number 2, call to the public, comments from the public. Those wishing to address the council should fill out request forms in advance. Comments from the public will be restricted to items not on the agenda with the exception of those on the consent agenda. There will be no comments allowed that advertise for a particular person or group. Comments should be limited to no longer than 3 minutes. The council may not respond to speakers during the call to the public. The council may direct the city manager to study the matter or request that the matter be placed on a future agenda. Tonight we have Ann Dory? Welcome, Ann.
Council members, I'm here to express my opposition to modifying the concept art for the historic train silhouette in Lewis Kingman Park. Lewis Kingman was not just a namesake. He was the civil engineer whose railroad alignment determined where this town would rise. His decisions shaped our settlement patterns, our early economy, and the transportation corridors that later became Route 66. His work transformed an isolated stretch of desert into a center for mining, ranching, trade, and eventually tourism. The silhouette installed in 1968 was created specifically to honor that legacy. It is a quiet industrial tribute to the railroad heritage that built this community. The silhouette's strength is its simplicity. It was never meant to be flashy artwork. It was meant to evoke the raw, unembellished character of the railroads that defined Kingman's identity. For nearly 6 decades, it has done exactly that. It is a beloved landmark because it preserves history. The proposed modification, however well-intentioned, moves us away from preservation and toward reinvention. The artist, who is unfamiliar with Kingman's culture and history, works in a pop art style of brash colors and bold graphics. That style may be appropriate elsewhere, but it clashes with the park setting and dilutes the meaning of the silhouette. Instead of honoring Lewis Kingman's work, it risks turning the train into a gimmicky attraction, more billboard than memorial. It uproots us from our history and replaces authenticity with spectacle. Route 66 visitors, especially international visitors, come here seeking nostalgia. They want an authentic slice of Americana, the golden age of railroads, diners, motels, and how things used to be. The existing silhouette already embodies that spirit. It is understated and true to how things used to be. Altering it undermines the very heritage Route 66 is meant to preserve. If revitalization is needed, a fresh coat of paint periodically would be entirely appropriate. If the city wishes to host new artwork for the Route 66 centennial, that can be done, just not on this historic piece. A separate installation would allow new art to shine without erasing or overshadowing the landmark that has represented Kingman's origins for generations. In short, the train silhouette is not just metal. It is memory. It is identity. It is the story of how Kingman came to be. Let's preserve it, not replace it. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Ann. Dr. Rob Christensen.
I'm glad that the City Council took the initiative to begin the Flying Fortress Parkway interchange at I-40. If the Kingman City Council can generate additional revenue to extend this parkway to the Kingman Industrial Park, it will relieve traffic from other major thoroughfares such as Andy Devine and Route 66. But there are other important traffic considerations that the City of Kingman must address. 2 intersections are the Stockton Hill Beverly Avenue and Stockton Hill and westbound I-40. My wife and I noticed numerous near-miss collisions due to the multiple decision points that drivers need to make when navigating the previously noted area. I submitted a letter to the Kingman City Council with a suggestion to relieve this traffic situation, and I hope the Kingman City Council will direct city staff to address and resolve the traffic situation, especially if additional revenue is generated from an increase in the city sales tax. I want to thank you for your time, and if you have any questions regarding my comments or correspondence, please feel free to contact me. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Item number 3, consent agenda. All matters listed here are considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Council, we had a chance to take a look at items A through N. Is there anything that needs to be pulled for discussion? See none over here? Over here. Can we have a motion then approving our consent agenda items A through N?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item 4, action items. For A, approval of ordinance 1981, repealing ordinance number 1041 and reestablishing 300 feet as the definition of sewer availability. Section 4.2G of the City of Kingman Utility Regulations requires all newly developed properties to connect to public sewer system when sewer is available. The regulations define available as a public sewer that is located within 500 feet of a property line of the property being developed. The city rarely receives requests for exemptions to this requirement. Due to the multiple requests, the Municipal Utilities Commission requested discussion regarding the distance requirements. Following their discussion, they recommended that the distance threshold be reduced from 500 feet to 300 feet in residential zones. The Municipal Utility Commission voted 6-0 to recommend approval. Council, any questions on this, or do we need to call Mike? Mike, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be happy to take any questions. This was actually an item that council asked me to take to MUC back in November of 2024. I took it to them and they tabled the discussion because their overwhelming sentiment was that the threshold distance was not the problem they had with the reg. The bigger problem they had with the regulation was that people weren't getting paid back for their installation of the extension of the sewer lines. And so they requested a report that I brought to them in January of 2025, and I basically outlined what our payback situation was like and what other communities were doing. And the payback rate for sewer extensions is only about 15%, or maybe a little less. And I highlighted the main reason for that is that we allow people to keep their septic systems even after the line's installed in front of their house. Some communities don't allow people to do that, but if somebody's got a septic tank that's going to last for 40 years, you're never going to get a payback on that lot. So after that discussion, there was a period where we didn't have a MUC meeting for a long time just because nothing came up. They eventually asked me to bring it back to them. And so they went ahead and approved the change to the 300 feet, and that's why I brought it to council.
Any questions or comments for Mike? Just a comment. What's interesting is the fact that it was 300 feet, then it got bumped to 500 feet, and then we're going back to 300 feet, which I can see with the return rate of 15%, the payback, our citizens aren't getting paid back the money that they've put into it.
Right.
So it
One
does
of
make
the
sense.
MUC members was a previous MUC member back when they made this change.
Mm-hmm.
And his recollection was that it was changed because they wanted to get more infill lots. So that's
Okay.
why they changed it. But by the same token, if you keep granting exceptions, then it's not going to do anything. So
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Can we have a motion then approving 4A, approval of ordinance number 1991, repealing ordinance number 1041?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 4B, consideration of request for exception to sewer connection, APN 305-18-560C. Staff has received a request for a sewer variance from Steve Smith and Eve Garland for two parcels located on Beverly Avenue, west of Fifth Street, which is at 305-18-560C. Section 4.2G of the utility regulations requires the property to connect to the public sewer system when sewer is available. The regulations define available as a public sewer that is located within 500 feet of a property line of the lot or parcel being developed. There is an existing 8-inch public sewer main approximately 390 feet away at the intersection of Beverly and Fifth that could be extended to serve these parcels. The Municipal Utility Commission voted 5-1 to recommend approval of the variance. Council, any questions? Mike,
Mayor?
do you want to give us some?
Well,
Mayor?
Yes.
I'll be abstaining from this.
Okay,
This item, so.
thank you, Keith.
Mayor, council, since we just passed ordinance 1991, I would point out that this is no longer a valid issue, so,
It's a moot point.
right.
Can I just add one comment? The
Yes.
previous action takes 30 days to go into effect,
Okay,
but
but yes, Carl, the humane thing to do. Any questions for Mike? Okay, thank you. Seeing none, can we have a motion approving item 4B, consideration of request for exception to sewer connection at parcel 305-18-560C?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. 4C, approval of request to waive recycling center fees in conjunction with the center's grand opening and ribbon cutting April 9th through 11th. Council directed staff to increase awareness of the city's recycling program and to schedule a grand opening. Staff has scheduled a grand opening for April 9th, 2026. In order to increase attendance and participation, staff is requesting council temporarily waive recycling center fees for 3 days, April 9th through the 11th. To support the ribbon cutting and grand opening, staff will implement a coordinated outreach campaign that includes a postcard mailer to all residents, social media ads, and additional promotional materials. Staff recommends approval. Sarah, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. In order to promote our recycling center and get more awareness, we are doing our grand opening on April 9th, and I was hoping to get council approval to waive recycling fees for that weekend. I think it would bring out more people. They could tour the center, see how it works, and then hopefully, once they do it one time, maybe they'll come back. And I did make some changes from what was in backup. I presented all to you to the new changes. We're just adding what types of things are recycled just to make it more people aware. So if you have any questions, I can answer them.
Any questions or comments for Sarah?
I do have a comment.
Yes, Vice Mayor.
Could we make sure that at the recycling event, we maybe have a comment or suggestion card for those people that are dropping, ask them some questions,
That's absolutely.
I don't know what those questions would be, but we want to make sure that we're giving the service that the public is expecting. So I just want to make sure that we're inquiring. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. If there are no other further questions for Sarah, can we have a motion then approving 4C, approval of request to waive recycling center fees in conjunction with the center's grand opening and ribbon cutting April 9th through the 11th?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item D, we're going to save till the last. We're going to go to item 4E first. Resolution number 5589, establishing new application fees, conditional use permit fees, a zoning verification letter fee, and a polygraph exam fee. The Kingman Police Department has been approached by various outside agencies to perform polygraph exams for them. In addition, the Development Services Department recently reviewed the list of services it provides and identified some planning services being provided at no cost. Staff is proposing to establish new fees for the polygraph exam and planning services in order to recover costs associated with them. A notice of intent to consider establishing these fees was adopted at the January 6th council meeting. Staff recommends approval of resolution number 5589. Tina, welcome.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. So I appreciate that summary, Mayor, and you pretty much covered it. If there are any particular questions about the handful of fees that we are requesting this evening to establish, I do have the police chief here that could answer anything on the polygraph exam fee. And then I also have the development services director that could answer any particular questions on the planning fees. If there are no questions, then we would recommend approval of the resolution.
Thank you, Tina. Any questions for Tina? Yes, Counselor.
Is this service opened up to attorneys, other people that may have someone they want to do polygraph and that person's willing to do that? Is it open to everybody and it's the same fees across the board?
Thank you so much, Councilman Savage. So I do know that there are other agencies, law enforcement agencies that have requested the service, but as far as opening it up, no, it does not sound like it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you. Can we have a motion then approving item 4E, resolution number 5589?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we also, before we discuss item 4D, the transaction privilege tax discussion, we would like to invite Jack Plante from our maintenance department, our roads department, to come up and give his report that is actually 6A, Comprehensive Pavement Management Program, staff report and technical presentation by NCE on infrastructure preservation and treatment applications. Jack, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. Thanks for the expedited trip to the podium here. So as you had mentioned, we're going to talk about our pavement management program, where we are, what we've done with the money that you guys committed to investing into our roadways. And so let me get my slides up and running. Ooh. Nope, second one. There you go. All right. Thank you, the man behind the curtain. All right, so as I mentioned, I want to talk a little bit about what we've done, what those results are, and what level of funding is needed to sustain that investment that the council has committed to our streets. So in this presentation, we'll talk about the responsibilities mainly, and I'll talk about it a little bit. It's good for the council and the public to understand that the money that we put forth for our streets doesn't just do pavement preservation. There's a lot of other work that's done that is funded by those dollars. Council committed $50 million in funding to year 2030, and say we're about halfway through that right now. And so we'll talk about what we spent and what that's done for us. We have a guest with us this evening from NCE. They're a paving consultant that we've used to help optimize our treatments and plan and execute some of that work. So we'll bring Jeff up this evening with us and then again discuss the long-term funding needs. So starting, and I won't read all these because it's just a whole bunch of bullet points, but we talked about the assets that streets maintains and how we do so. So as you guys know, but for the public as well, highway user revenue funds right now is predominantly how streets are funded, how they have been funded. That's being supplemented by the funds that council committed from the general fund, reducing our operating reserve so we could actually execute some pavement preservation work. And so those highway user revenue funds are fuel tax and registration fees that are collected by the state, and then those are distributed downward from the state to the counties, cities, and towns based on population and some things that they determine what level of funding each agency receives. Our pavement preservation funds, our HERF funds that we receive, have not been able to keep up with pavement preservation. So as you recall, there was a 0.5% sales tax that was generated on bar and restaurant to help supplement that, but we've always been behind and slowly actually degrading in network condition, which is why council committed that $50 million. And so another item that's really important to note, as you guys know, but not all of the public understands, we hear it often when we receive calls, is their property tax, property tax, property tax. City of Kingman has no property tax. Out of the $8.1 percent sales tax that are received, 2.1 of that goes to the city, respectively 3.1 for bar and restaurant tax. So we receive no property tax from Mojave County, and the city has no primary property tax. So I think that's really important to note. As well, HERF can only be used for transportation. Street lights, asphalt, dirt roads, shoulder grading, all those things. And there's some statistics in here just so you guys can see them again. I'm not going to touch on all of them. If you guys have questions, let me know. So talking about our public and our customers, I wanted to talk about when we receive calls for service and what those calls of service are comprised of, what type of work. And so this is just the volume of calls that we receive each year, and you'll see it fluctuates. As I go to the next slide, you'll see it's usually in association with some type of weather event, mostly water for us, and that generates a lot of calls, be it drainage repair requests, weeds, those sorts of things. So you'll see that on the next slide. What this does not reflect is the hours spent for a request for service. So it could be a 10-minute repair, it could be 10 hours. So just keep that in mind. This is volume only, not volume of work that's completed to correct whatever the issue is. It's kind of a busy slide, but I like this one because when we receive calls for service, requests for service from the public, we categorize those right now in an Excel sheet. And so we can kind of track what those calls for service are, what are the major drivers for those services. And so as you can see in here, the tallest brown bar in the very back ties back into the number of calls for service on the previous slide. We have a wet year, we have lots of calls for service. Again, could be going and grading shoulders, cleaning out driveway areas, weed abatement, all those things that occur. Sweeping has been a big one. I think that's as a result of some of the storms, but also some preservation activities. Another one is asphalt patching and potholes. So I actually had to do a little digging in this because although we have the work sections broke out in our sheet when we receive the request for service, it's a square pothole. Square pothole is usually a water leak. And so had to go through each of those and kind of break them out. And so you can see the volume of utility patch requests versus pothole. I think potholes, we were about 48, and we're well over 100 for requests for patching. And some of those, it's probably not totally reflective just because some of them have been called multiple times and they end up in a single line. So anyway, these are the services that our customers have come to, expect or request from us. And so these are also activities that are funded by HERF. That's the only reason I wanted to stray away from asphalt for a minute, is just to paint a picture of the whole scope of the work that's needed and the funding that's associated with that. So let's talk about asphalt right now. This graph represents the functional class makeup of our network. 75% is the residential streets in town, actually 76 rather. So it makes up 3/4 of our network. That's your small streets around town. Then you have collectors. Those are like Eastern, Western, Sycamore probably falls in that category. Minor arterials, you're getting into some of the bigger roads, Keno, Gordon, and some of the higher traffic volume, so higher functional class, higher traffic volume. And then the arterial, Stockton Hill, Airway, those are our major carriers. Highest traffic, highest cost to rebuild, highest cost to repair, most impact to the public typically because Airway itself, Airway at Stockton Hill carries over 30,000 cars a day. So let's talk about the work we've done to date. This is actually a slide that I'm pretty happy with, and it'll look better as we get in so you can see the results. Since 2022, as it shows here, we've actually treated over 50% of the residentials. As you recall, we were actually going to do one residential district per year when we put forth the first presentation or request for funding. And looking at that, we are actually going to see some savings by being able to expedite, and we're doing 2 districts per year. One of those got delayed when we had helped with the Rancho situation for funding the TI. Arterial collectors, they're kind of buried in here, but again, Stockton Hill, Western, Sycamore, roads like those. We've treated almost 45% of those, and so that's a pretty significant chunk of our arterials that have been done. And as you'll see in slides later on, it's really improved the network condition as well. 284 miles of roadways, lane miles of roadways is what we've treated since 2022. Last year, this year alone, we did 100 miles of residential. So it's a pretty significant amount of work has been done. And that's done a couple things for us. It's reversed the long-term decline that we've seen in our network. You guys have seen that. I didn't even put PCI in here. I beat you guys up with that so bad. I'm sure you didn't want to hear it again. But our network condition had been declining for years, just year over year. You could see it happening, and we couldn't do anything without funding. So with this work, the funding that the council has put forth, we've really protected this asset. Paving is almost $300 million worth of replacement value. So it's one of our largest public assets that we have care and custody of to maintain. So it's really important that we do so. Talked about arterials and collectors being highest traveled roads, most traffic volume. So by improving their condition, we've also reduced future liability and costs for reconstruction. So those are good things. So I'm going to take a minute and not bore you to death with some of those statistics. And I'm going to bring up Jeff Stimpahar. He is with NCE. They're a consultant that we've used to help optimize our system. As you guys know, we use a pavement management system, and periodically we need to update that with conditions and what treatments we're going to do and how we approach those. So Jeff has over 20 years of experience in excuse me. Jeff has over 20 years of experience specializing in pavement evaluation and design, material selection, and developing best practice guidelines. He has worked on projects at the local, state, and national level. Jeff is a registered professional engineer in Arizona and has authored numerous technical specifications, test procedures, technical reports, and industry publications. So as I mentioned, I'm pretty excited to show you some slides when Jeff gets done. But this is the kind of work that we've been doing with Jeff to really optimize what we're doing in the field. And those results will show. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jeff and let him run through some slides, and then I'll come back after and finish out. Thank you.
Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. Thank you, Jack. Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, I want to talk a little bit about optimizing pavement treatments, and it'll tie in with, as Jack said, some of the work that we've been helping him, supporting his team over the past 5 years. Just a little background on NCE is we're a engineering and environmental consulting firm. You can see the disciplines we do, but what's unique about us is we actually have a dedicated team that just works on pavement in terms of asset management, pavements, and materials. So we really enjoy this. We have offices in Nevada, California, and I'm based locally here in Arizona in Scottsdale. So some backgrounds, no secret here, right? Pavements deteriorate over time. It looks different, okay? It could be due to traffic loading. Cars, trucks typically don't do a lot of damage. It's your heavy vehicles. Hauling trucks, garbage trucks, those are the workhorses that do the damage to pavement systems. A lot of times, especially in residential, though, it's due to environmental factors. So exposure to sunlight, heat, temperature swings, that's when pavements start to crack. It's extremely important, like any asset, that we need to monitor and maintain it over time. And aesthetics can be important. A lot of the times on highways, the public's not looking down at cracks. If it's a smooth ride, no one's complaining, right? When you start looking at residential, though, aesthetics matter. So they can be important. Here's the photos from left to right show like a brand new pavement condition and how things start to deteriorate. You'll get different types of cracks. The cracks get smaller. That's when chunks start to pop out and you get potholes. And then on the right is kind of a failed condition where it's a lot of cracking, typically where you get the most complaints. So how do we monitor pavement condition? Well, you have to inspect it. So periodic inspections are key. The frequency could be, depending on what you're looking at, a few years, 1 to 5 years, depending on residential, arterial. And as Jack mentioned, the city of Kingman uses a Street Saver pavement management program. These are robust tools designed for planning and budgeting purposes. Okay, so what they do is they answer the key questions is it's a database so that the city knows what they own and maintain. There's a lot of times where jurisdictionally, we found was maintaining streets and roads that weren't even under their jurisdiction. So it's a good way to document what you actually should pay to maintain. 4 key questions, or I said the first one, what condition are the streets in? Okay, that's documented in the system. What repairs are needed and typically when? And then the big question is how much funding do we need to get our desired outcome? And the other key thing about this is it tracks maintenance activities. So if your city crews or a contractor goes out and does a treatment, it gets input into the system and it's a permanent log of when that treatment was done. So it's a robust tool. And hats off to Jack and the team for implementing this type of system. There are agencies out there that still use spreadsheets to track their pavement conditions. I wouldn't recommend it, but these are powerful tools. Okay, pavement condition index, you can't get away from it, right? It's a measure of how the condition of the roadway, you've seen this before, it sounds like, typically a PCI value of 70 to 100 would be in very good condition, and then it goes down from there. I gave some examples. On the left would be a brand new road in the city here. It would be a PCI of 100. That's right after construction. An 80 still looks really good, rides smooth, couple cracks, and then it goes down from there. And the one on the right would be considered pretty extensively cracked, a very poor condition. But we need to have this term to talk about managing pavements. On to the importance of preservation and maintenance. So I use the analogy, it's just like skiing, right? There are people, I enjoy skiing. There are people in Arizona that love skiing. But if you think of on the left side of this, pavement condition at the top is really good, and as it goes lower on the chart, it's bad. And time is on the bottom. So over time, what happens is the pavements deteriorate following this blue line. And so if you start off on the top of the slope, things are going well. It's not very steep usually. Okay, this is our time where we typically do preservation and maintenance. Okay. If you don't do anything, if you don't hit the brakes, pavements start to deteriorate very quickly, right? If you don't stop, you start skiing out of control, you look back, what just happened, okay? And you eventually, pavements are in a failure condition. Okay? This is if you do nothing. Okay? If you actually implement a preservation and maintenance program, it starts out the same, right? You're not gonna go out necessarily and treat a brand new pavement the year after you construct it. Okay? So if you do the preservation and maintenance, you apply the brakes in skiing, you slow down the deterioration, right? I go slower down the hill. That steep hill doesn't look so steep anymore, right? Things are going well, and what you notice is that right here, you're still gonna end in failure, but you're delaying that further out in time. So you can see that the dash line was your untreated condition, and as we get out at that same time, we have a higher overall condition of that pavement because we applied treatments. It's the same as maintaining your vehicle. If you do the maintenance, it should last longer. Should last longer. What are the types of treatments? Well, there's all kinds of different treatments that are used in industry, and they're for different conditions. So you could be sealing cracks. That's where they spray the sealant in and close the crack up. The key, water is a pavement's enemy. So you don't want to keep the water out. I know we live in the desert, but it still rains and we do get water in. Okay. Scrub seals are where they actually spray a treatment down and they use brooms and bristle it into the cracks to fill the cracks. Okay. Microsurfacing is done here. It's a mixture of emulsion, which has the glue, and it has some very fine aggregate particles or rock particles, and that will seal up the surface and add some friction. Okay. There's a cape seal, which is a multi-layered system. So they'll actually spray something on the surface, depending on what type of cape seal, they'll add a chip seal and then seal it again on the top. So multi-layered systems are very powerful tools. And then there's some other ones like a fog seals where it's just sprayed down. It typically will seal the surface, prevent the sun damage or help slow that, but it doesn't really do anything for your cracks. Slurry seal, similar to microsurfacing, different materials. And then the chip seal is, I know what's used here locally a lot, and that's where they put down that glue system and then the rocks on top and roll it together to seal things. The more expensive treatments and most impactful to the public are where you start to do mill and overlays, where you grind up some of the top of the surface and you repave it, or full depth reclamation, where you actually go out and grind up all the material, the asphalt layer and the aggregate underneath or soil, and create a new stable base and then put new asphalt concrete on top, and then full reconstruction. These are the most expensive treatments. They are necessary in some cases, but if you're doing this, it means you're not treating other streets in your network, so it's a balance. So the winning strategy is you want to place the right treatment on the right road at the right time. This is kind of the foundation of pavement management and managing and keeping and optimizing the life of those pavements. So fundamental to how Street Saver works and how cities come up with budgets is you have to have a treatment selection matrix. And this is just an example. What it does is, if you see on the left, it was those condition categories I showed you earlier. Not all those treatments should be applied to every condition across the board. As it deteriorates more, you need a more robust treatment to solve your issue and preserve that pavement and give the residents the surfaces they're hoping for. So the goal here is that you don't have to read every piece of text on here, but typically there's different treatment selections for arterial collectors and residentials. And what I want to highlight too is that if you look on the far right, it gets more expensive as you go down the table. So for example, on a residential, the most expensive treatment might be a double chip seal or a 3-inch mill and repave with some base repairs. But if we go to an arterial, that same reconstruct might be a full 5 inches of asphalt concrete, 9 inches of asphalt base, much more. So you're looking at this is again example, but maybe $110 a square yard versus $26.50 for residential. So as we get to an arterial, it's going to cost a lot more. They're doing the work of carrying our transportation system. The one thing I want to highlight though is Street Saver, these decision matrices are budgeting planning tools, okay? The treatments, it's also based on local experience and unit costs, and it's very important that before you start putting out a package to bid, that you go out in the field, look at the pavements, and make sure that it's the appropriate treatment. Okay? A lot of times the budgeting tools say, hey, you need to do a fog seal, and you go out in the street and you say, that's not enough. We need to do a chip seal here. So it's really important that you have to not take everything that Street Saver says and go and build it. And so that's what we're working with Jack and the team to help identify and optimize those treatments to fit within an allocated budget. So to summarize the importance of the right treatment, right road, and the right time is we want to find a treatment that appropriately addresses the pavement distress on the street. The key is efficient use of funds. We don't want to overspend. We don't want to just go and mill and overlay every street because you're going to run out of budget really quickly. But you don't want to underspend. We don't want to put a fog seal or just that sprayed on, basically it turns it black color on a surface that's very deteriorated. You're wasting your money there. Okay, so what we really want to do is maximize coverage across the city. So picking treatments that treat the most streets and touch the residents that are out there in your city. And we want to improve network condition. We want the trend to at least stabilize or go upward by applying those treatments. And again, if you do this, it's your biggest benefit to residents. So we always show these pictures in these presentations. The one on the right is You see it out there. I just saw it on an Arizona highway. Just the crack sealing everything. It's not the right treatment, but it's done. Where the one with the green check is a proper, appropriate treatment where they sealed the cracks and then they did some kind of surface treatment to seal up that surface and extend pavement life. So with that, I just want to ask if there's any questions before I hand it back to Jack to finish up the topic.
Thank you, Jeff. Any comments or questions for Jeff? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Before you- Excuse me, Mayor. I have a question for Jack, and you might cover this later on, but I just wanted to know, of all the treatments that he listed, are we using a good variety of them, or what are, I mean, I know what I think we're using, but.
Yeah, that's a great question. So actually, all the treatments that are on that slide are treatments that we have used. One of those was probably adding cement to the full depth reclamation, but every one of those we've selected and used on the appropriate road throughout our network.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you,
Thank you
Mayor.
for the question. All right, so let's talk about the funding and what those results of the funding use has been. We started out with 50 million of general funds committed, and so 5 million of that was pulled back for Flying Fortress to help there. That has left us just over $23 million of expended funds dedicated to pavement preservation to date. Big one that is really important, and this comes back to what Jeff is saying, right time, right road, right treatment, is we are actually ahead of schedule. Part of that was we had ran a whole series of different scenarios in our management program, and we had landed on the one district per year for residentials. By expediting that, by optimizing our treatments and kind of getting crafty, quite honestly, on some of our work, right now we're actually about $3 million ahead of where we anticipated we'd be in the schedule. So I think that's a great, I mean, that's a really good place. $3 million out of 50, you're talking 6% of savings in that. And that's because of the work we do with NC and the work we do in the field. And so this has got us a long way. As we go along, we'll talk a little more about what we still need to do. Just, we have some work to do, but these slides, this one is one that this council should be very proud of. It's real simplistic. I've, as you guys have seen, made 100 different charts and graphs and tried to paint a picture to the community and to the council of what we're seeing. And this is one of the most simplistic and I think tells the best story. So what you see here is the red line is our poor and very poor conditions, and the green line is our good and fair conditions. And so when we started this, when we implemented the pavement management system in 2016, over half our roads, actually over 60% of our roads were in that poor to very poor condition category. That's bad, right? It's expensive to get them back up out of that condition. It's not suitable for the community. When you're talking about our arterials and collectors, those are our economic lifeline for our community. You know, people flow from those residences onto those arterials to our businesses, from the regional roads like I-40 onto those to our businesses. So they're really important. And so what you can really see is where those two lines intersect is when we broke the curve, and now we have a greater number of our network in good and fair condition than we do in poor, very poor. It's such a simplistic slide, but again, this is something this council should be very proud of. You guys made a dedicated commitment to funding preservation, and this is the result. And so right now, our good and very good roads are actually over 60%. So we've completely inverted that from a 60-40 in failing to a 40% in poor to very poor. Again, we still got some work to do, but you know, this is something that I think is very telling for the community on what these funds are doing. And so again, more work to do. I keep saying that. But our network is much stronger and in a better position than it has been in probably decades. So kudos to you. And also kudos to the street crews that are out there. They are hustling every day. This year, they'll probably handle about 500,000 to 750,000 pounds of rubber, that they touch every pound of that. They're patching and prepping and working and really putting in a lot of effort to make these results. So I want to recognize them as well. So talk about functional class here for a minute and what the PCIs are. I have this in a single section. Really what I wanted to show here is, as you recall, for a number of years, we were focused on arterial collectors, just trying to keep them in some kind of condition, although our network was still slowly declining. Residentials had not been touched really since probably 2016. And so we've completed 3 residential districts with crack seal, chip seal. We have another one that's crack sealed. We're working on 2 more. So by the end of next fiscal year, we should have touched every residential road in town. And so what that's showing in these results is the increase in our functional class, including our residentials. That's really the main reason I wanted to show this slide. We're committed to everything, all road functions, including our residentials. One thing I do want to point out, a astute member of your group picked up on the way my graph was lined up, and it's my data points, that it looks like our PCI in our residentials was increasing before we had started working in them. And that's just because if you look at my data sets, they look kind of random. And that's because I was going back through old reports and pulling condition categories that I had pulled in those reports. So really between 21, 23 is where we had started in the residential. So I just want to point that out. Again, significant improvement from where we started. As you can see, even our arterials, we're getting close to that 70% mark. So that's a really good thing. Residentials have climbed, over 10 points. So, and we're only halfway through and we're still working. So let's talk a little bit about the projects that are coming up. I did have a plan for arterial collectors. We're still doing some, but I didn't have time to get them listed on this sheet for you. We adjusted our timeline on a couple projects to help with some other project timelines. And so we made that change kind of last minute. So the projects I had planned for this year are going to move to next fiscal year after July. But spring, this coming spring, you guys have already approved a contract for us to complete chip seal in District 4. Our crews are in there right now wrapping up crack seal. And so moving into fall of fiscal year 27, that'll be District 5. That's the green area. That's out Rancho and Foothills areas. And so our crews are actually, the goal is to have that crack sealed this year and prepped for next year, next fiscal year. We'll roll in and we will do a chip seal on that in the fall of 27. And then through the winter of 27, we'll be crack sealing the purple district, this downtown area. And then we'll ultimately come in and chip seal that in the spring. So by the spring of 27, which seems like a long way away, but we all know how time moves, we will have touched every residential road in Kingman, which is about 3 years ahead of schedule. And as I'd indicated, we were actually about $3 million ahead as well. So I like this slide as well. As we've talked about, we need to continue our work, continue the commitment that the council has made. And so initially we were in a stabilization phase. We're trying to get things to quit declining and start slowly improving. And we've done that, and we need to continue that. To do so, it's going to require ongoing annual funding. You guys, this is not a new message. You guys have heard this over and over and over again, and you guys have been working toward that. And so we ran a whole number of scenarios again and trying to find something that was, fiscally achievable, that keeps us heading in the right direction and continues to protect the investment that the council has made. And so this graph is actually extended out. The dotted lines continue from where we are now if we were to maintain a $5 million annual funding level. And so, as you can see, we continue to increase over the years. I ran it out to 2037 is where I ran the scenarios to, but I actually ran a 20-year scenario and it just continues to increase beyond that as well. So, again, a dedicated funding source. would help us out tremendously. Especially what's not represented in here, because I couldn't figure out how to do it well and not make it look messy, is in 2030, as you know, the general funds that you guys have committed dry up. And so when I run those scenarios and you see our PCI in 2030, we look really good, and then it instantly starts declining just like we did after '08. And so I know I keep saying it, and I know you guys have heard it a lot. You've heard it from the community as well. We've got to keep these roads maintained. And so one thing that that is important to note, the $5 million a year is not going to make rapid improvements. We're not really being super aggressive. We can, but we're just trying to continually make improvement to the network. And again, as you can see, that's a real simplistic graph, but you can see that we continue that effort. We continue those results is more important. The only thing that I would like to mention that the funding doesn't account for is ADA improvements. Certain treatments trigger ADA requirements as it's federal law. And so those need to be done. You guys seen we did a number of ADA projects along Andy Devine utilizing the Community Development Block Grant funds and the CDBG funds. And so that's something we'll still have to address. This isn't the place for CDBG talks, but there is no funds dedicated to ADA improvements associated with our pavement preservation. These funds that are shown, or this network condition chart, is specific to those funds dedicated to the preservation activities, not other work that's needed with it. And so with that, I try to answer any questions you guys have and go from there.
Well, Jack, thank you for the presentation. And of course, Jeff from NCE, thank you too. Any questions or comments for Jack or Jeff?
I do
Vice
have
Mayor?
some. I do. First of all, I want to thank you and your group. You guys are doing a tremendous job. The chart speaks for itself, and I loved seeing the inversion because that really does tell the story. For anybody that had any question about our pavement preservation, that tells the story. So we should put that on the front page of the paper. Also, I just wonder, with the growth that's happening, I mean, yes, the construction, the developers that are putting in the developments, they're gonna have to put in the roads, but then we're gonna have to bring them into our network, and we're gonna have to start taking care of them at some point. So I just wonder, in your projections, are you including growth in your projections?
I have not. They're kind of built in because as you see population growth, you also see revenue growth through sales tax. And so those two may not always run necessarily proportionally, meaning that although you add, 5 miles of road, the funding may or may not match that. But we do have some inflationary factors built in and some revenue increase because as our population increases, that revenue stream would increase as well. And so those are actually built into the scenarios that we run. So
Yes and no?
yes and no.
Okay.
Yeah.
I worry about that because we know that, with the sales tax revenue that's collected, it's not necessarily dollar for dollar when it comes to infrastructure. We have,
Yeah.
inflationary costs, we have all sorts of unforeseen things. So in your modeling, I worry about that. So
The biggest factor that benefits those revenues, and Tina's probably better to speak on this, you have a residents come in, they're gonna be spending money in the community. It's those businesses that facilitate the purchase and the TPT that generates it. So although we get houses where I'm saying they're not always proportionate, you could have a lot of houses and no necessarily big change in your business. When you see the business changes, that's where we would capture that growth, if that makes sense.
okay. And I just wonder, so the projections are 5 million for the next round of, you're projecting 5 million per year to maintain?
Yeah, 5 million, and then again, we did factor in, it was about 3% revenue growth year over year.
Okay. So I guess with the 5 million, I just also wonder if you're being too conservative because you're going to have roads, like Jeff was saying, we're going to have roads that get to a point to where the chip seal and all that is not going to be enough. And so I wonder and hope that you're factoring that in.
That is a great question. So, yes, those are factored in. And what you would likely see, the program, the management tool helps us with that. So we put in the condition of the roadway and some information. It has deterioration curves, and it is projecting the life of that asphalt based on its current condition. And so it is predicting and telling us, hey, here are the maybe reconstructs, here are the rehabilitations, here are the surface treatment, here's your preventative maintenance. And I can look at that year over year and plan those projects out. Now, we may move those because, as I mentioned before, the projects we had planned, we're shuffling around so we can accommodate some other work. And so we may move that to a year. We may move it up a year if we know there's something we need to be ahead of. What you would likely see, what we have seen in the past is, okay, we may collect $5 million a year in revenue, but this year we're going to do $3 million worth of projects knowing we have a large reconstruct or something coming. And so the next year might be, $7 million. The revenue collection is the same year over year, but our payment spend, our management spend may fluctuate slightly to accommodate those projects. And that's what we used to do even with the limited funding we had. You would watch, we'd do a big cycle of preventative maintenance stuff, and then the next year we would do a mill and fill. And so we cycle those back and forth to one, accommodate when the treatment should be done, what treatment should be done, and what funding is available.
Okay. All the while spending all the funding you're collecting, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. In 2030, when it's proposed that these funds run out, I just want to get it on the record. So we've done such a great job in implementing a pavement preservation program. We've inverted the PCI. If we weren't to keep up, how long would it take for our roads to get to the state that they were in, which was bad disrepair when we started this?
I can't give you an exact number of years, but quickly. And I don't have one here. You guys have seen it where I showed the decline in funding in 2008, and you've seen Jeff's deterioration curve. When I say deterioration curve, that's what we're talking about. Asphalt starts good, starts out slowly, and then it rapidly starts to deteriorate. And so what I can tell you is in the scenarios that I ran before, based on the 2030 funding mechanism, after 2 years, we've already dropped down about 4 points of our overall network condition. And so it's pretty rapid.
So we are at an extreme critical moment where we need to keep this trajectory moving upward, and we can't fall back.
Yeah, so actually, I think something that really highlights that for you is we had looked at a number of scenarios in the past, and $5 million had came up of, okay, this is a potential. And quite honestly, it was shock value for me because I've run 100 of these scenarios over different times, and 5 million would have never got us there. What has made $5 million achievable, and again with the growth, is the fact that we have invested so much into the roads and we've got our condition up. We've kind of given it a leg up to where now 5 million is achievable. Looking through some of the reports we had done in the past in the 2019, 2018 timeframe, I want to say it was like $7 million a year, which is what we've been committing to increase the PCI. Now we've got the network condition has improved. Now we can go into, we need to keep improving it, but a lot of it is going to be maintenance mode. So
Great. Thank you for all of that. I just wanted to get all that out to the public so that it was a clear picture. And again, you guys have done a fantastic job, and I appreciate everything you do.
thank you. I'll pass that on to the crews.
Jack, once again, we thank you and your crew for all that is happening in our city and improving our roads. I did want to comment, and as Vice Mayor was alluding to, just because 2030 comes doesn't mean road maintenance. I mean, the need. Yes, funding is going to stop unless we do something about it. And of course, that will lead us into our next discussion. But yeah, it's never ending. as I've always commented, there's potholes in life all the time.
Yep.
Doesn't matter where you go.
Once we own it forever. So.
Correct. I do want to touch on one thing real quick. On your Kingman statistic, only because we're talking about roads, it does say 18.6 miles of maintained dirt roads. And a number of us know where those dirt roads are in the city. And city manager, if you want to weigh in on this too, I think it's important because I've seen a lot of social media complaints about the city and the size of our city. Why do we have dirt roads? And I know the answers, but I want to just bring that out. And actually, Vice Mayor, being in the real estate business, you might be able to show some comment on that too, and some expertise. So, City Manager, do you want to start just real quick? I know I don't mean to take us down that rabbit hole, but it is important, since we're talking about roads, that our citizens understand why.
Yeah. So Kingman's been around for a while. We haven't always had the standards that we have now. Now, if you were to go in and develop a neighborhood, you'd be required to bring in those improvements, roads, streets, sidewalks, water, sewer, all of those. But previously, that wasn't required. So we've got a number of lots that have been platted throughout the city on roads that have not been improved. Those lots exist, so residents owners of those lots do have the ability to go in and build on those. A number of those have been built already without improving those roads. So that's where the existing roads, existing dirt roads come from. The cost to go back through is quite expensive. I mean, we're seeing just maintaining pavement roads, what that cost is, but to actually go in and put in curb, gutter, sidewalk, and pavement would be quite expensive. And then, the question becomes, is that a cost that all of our residents should pay for that one specific road? And you can go down, various discussions about improvement districts in order to get those roads done. But lots of options if residents do want to pave those roads, but overall, it's quite expensive for the city to try and undertake.
It comes to a need or a want, basic too. And I think it's important to point out too, that home that they buy on a dirt road, as opposed to that same home if we're on a paved road, that paved road home is going to be a lot more expensive, I would think. $10,000, $15,000 more at least.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm not in the appraisal business, but I absolutely, I think that is factored in with the valuation of the home.
But it's important that our citizens understand this. And once again, you see comments on social media complaining about our city and why we're not doing something about it. And we're trying. It's just that some of those are wants as opposed to needs.
There are a lot of problems that we'd love to solve. It just comes down to funding.
Well, thanks for commenting on that, and Jack, thanks too.
Thank you, guys.
Any other discussion or comment on this matter? Okay. Thanks for that report. Let's go back to then item 4D, transaction privilege tax, TPT, discussion. In fiscal year 2024, the City Council adopted a 7-year funding program for street repairs, maintenance, and improvements. This program is funded with general fund cash reserves, but the reserves will be expended in fiscal year 2030. A recurring source of revenue will be necessary to continue the program. Additionally, the Flying Fortress Parkway traffic interchange project and connector roads from Louise Avenue to Airway Avenue are expected to be fully constructed in August of 2026. There is currently no construction timeline for the connector road from Airway Avenue to Industrial Boulevard, and there is no city funding set aside to complete this project. An estimated cost for this portion of the connection is $22 million. Staff will present to council information on transaction privilege tax, known as TPT, rates and options, fund balances, and community comparison data. Council discretion. Tina, welcome again.
Thank you so much again, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Before I get started, there is an updated presentation in front of you. There were a couple of slides as I was just reviewing materials this morning that needed to be updated. I wanted to be sure you had the most current version. The most current version is posted on the agenda as well, but I wanted to make sure you had the most current version also. When I get to those slides, I'll make sure to cover those also. And also, in the packets this evening, we always like to compare our city to other Arizona cities and towns. So there is a compilation of data as far as services, census estimates, tax rates, types of primary versus secondary tax rates for all of the cities and towns in Arizona, just as a reference purpose. I thought we'd get started looking at our TPT rate history. So I don't know prior to 1986. I couldn't find the ordinances prior to 1986. But I know that in 1986, our regular standard tax rate was 2%. Now, the table in front of you, anything that's highlighted black are the years and the tax rates that were changed at that time. So in 1986, we had a 2% general fund tax rate in place, and the council at the time decided to adopt an additional 2% on our hotel and motel tax that would be dedicated towards tourism. Fast forward to 2010, and it was decided at the time to assess another 2% on our hotels and motels, dedicating that solely to capital projects. This is one of the slides, by the way, that I did end up changing. In 2012, we realized we needed to dedicate some money to additional monies. Again, going through the recession, council realized that streets needed to be addressed and additional monies in the general fund. The streets rate was a 1% increase on our restaurant and bars, and there was also a 1% increase on the general fund at that time. Shortly thereafter, you'll see, though, that general fund 1% tax went away, and instead the council adopted a 0.5% general fund regular tax rate. So moving our regular tax rate from 2% to 2.5%. November 2017, we know that the council adopted a 1% increase on streets and on capital projects, splitting that 0.5%, and then we know what happened shortly thereafter. It was repealed. And so since January of 2019, we've had a 2.5% rate for our general fund purposes, a 1% tax rate to fund streets and to fund street maintenance, and that is imposed on restaurant and bar purchases, and then the hotel and motel tax rates for tourism and capital projects. So what do those different tax rates produce as far as revenue is concerned? Well, the 2.5% for the general fund generates, we expect this year, close to $30 million. Each of the 2% tax rates on hotels that's dedicated to tourism and capital projects will generate close to $800,000. And then our 1% tax on restaurant and bars that's dedicated to street maintenance will produce about $1.4 million. So that tax, as well as the HERF tax, is what funds our entire street program, other than what's being committed by the council through fiscal year 2030. We often talk a lot about our unassigned fund balance. As a matter of fact, the council looked to dip into those reserves to fund our street maintenance program. But I want to share a little bit about where we are and where we will be in fiscal year 2030, as well as in fiscal year 2031. And I want to point that out specifically. So right now, Jack shared that we've spent $23 million of the $45 million that council dedicated to street maintenance. So we have $22 million left to allocate to streets. That's currently sitting in the general fund. Every year we transfer monies to HERF to cover their program. In fiscal year 30, you'll see that our general fund unassigned fund balance will drop to 31%. Council did informally adopt an unassigned fund balance percentage between 30 and 35%. But you'll see that in fiscal year 2031, we don't automatically increase our reserves and get to that 35, 40, or 50% level, which is where we used to be in the past. It will then maintain anywhere between that 30 to 35%. So really just going back to the statement that Jack made earlier, and the council recognizes that we don't have the reserves any further after fiscal year 2030 to cover the street maintenance program. So is our fund balance policy do we have too much in reserves? And so we talk about that level. We talk about is 25% too high of a minimum fund balance. Well, I happened to reach out to our local sister agencies as well as Mojave County to find out what their fund balances are. They have a different methodology, a different approach. We all do to that. But what I wanted to point out specifically is at the bottom of this particular table, I have in italicized blue, if the city were to adopt any of those other communities' fund balance policies or reserve policies, what our percentage of unassigned fund balance would be this year and then in fiscal year 2031. And you'll see that in fiscal year 2031, we're all about the same place, right? We would be anywhere from 34 to 43%. So really the slide is just going to show that I feel confident that our policy is right in line with what our other agencies and communities are. Certainly we can make any changes and use a different methodology, but I wouldn't recommend going any lower than what we currently have in place. So just recapping the three major budget priorities that we talked about back in January, and that is, I'll start on the right side with water service lines. We know that that is a priority. We also know that that will likely be funded from water ratepayers, so certainly not part of the TPT discussion, but wanted to make sure that I did capture that as it was a priority discussed. And then we also talked about the recurring street maintenance program after fiscal year 30. And that will likely be funded with some sort of tax in order to keep that program going. And also another project is the Flying Fortress Parkway, extending that from Airway to Industrial Boulevard. We're doing everything else, right? From Louise to Airway and then extending Airway to Prospector. We've got the interchange in. Now we just need that last segment. And we expect that that will cost about $22 million. That will likely be funded primarily with tax or partnership with the developers. And while we will be looking for grants to help us with this, it's likely that the grants or contributions from the state will not cover the cost for this project. So TPT rates and revenue generation. So what would $5 million, or how could we potentially generate $5 million to fund our street program on a recurring basis? Looking at the different types of categories, we know that we have our regular tax in place. We also know that we have additional taxes on restaurant and bars, and we also have additional taxes on hotels and motels. So I kind of broke down each of those different categories, that if there was an increment of 0.1%, 0.5%, and all the way up to 1% on any of those particular categories, and only those particular categories, what would the revenue generate? So this is also a slide that I updated. I had pulled some data from a different data source that was incorrect at my January work session, and I noticed in this particular slide as well, so I wanted to update the data. It doesn't make a huge difference, but enough of a difference that I wanted to make sure that I got the accurate numbers to you. So looking at the 0.5% for regular TPT, so that would be across the board, taxable categories, almost across the board. There are a few categories that would be excluded, but for the most part, almost all categories, it would generate close to $6 million. If we were to impose another 1% on restaurant and bars, that would generate about $1.4 million. And then on hotels and motels, you'll see that that's even less than that. But that gives you an idea of the different revenues that would be generated based on any sort of increase that would take place across any of these particular categories. So let's talk about our sister cities. We know that the city of Kingman's TPT rate is higher than Lake Havasu City and Bullhead City. This table shows that, and we know that. We fight that every day. What I want to make clear in this particular slide is that Lake Havasu City has a primary property tax dedicated to their general fund operations. The city of Kingman does not, nor does Bullhead City. Bullhead City does not fund a fire department. They do have fire service. The city of Bullhead has fire service, but Bullhead City does not fund that. It comes through the fire district tax. And that is equates to about $15 million that is imposed on that tax that Bullhead City does not have to absorb in their general fund. So I just want to make that very clear that while we tend to look at those TPT rates, there are other revenues that we need to look at as far as having a true comparison with our sister cities.
Mayor, to that point on the fire district, how does Bullhead pay? how do Bullhead residents pay for their fire district? Can you,
Vice Mayor, it is through a property tax.
okay. And do we know what that percentage of property tax is?
I do not know what that percentage of property tax is, but if you're alluding to what that tax rate would be in the event that it were to transition to a tax rate, it would increase Bullhead's tax rate by about 1.3%.
Okay. I think that's very important to delineate that. Okay, thank you.
Tina,
Yes.
since that was brought up, under Lake Havasu, do you have the figure that doing the same thing, what you just did with Bullhead, with the property tax or the fire district tax, what about the property tax in Lake Havasu? What would that bring their percentage up to approximately?
Councilman Dykens, that would increase Lake Havasu's rate by about 0.36%. And I do think it's important to note that we're just looking at adopted fiscal year 26 numbers. How they spend the money, what they use the monies on is, I am not privy to that. I am just privy to the adopted numbers that they have posted. I want to make that very clear to my comrades in the other communities.
My point in that exercise is we fund our police and fire, and it's at about 51%.
Closer to 60% now, Vice Mayor.
Okay,
yes, of
so
our-
closer to 60% of our general fund balance monies are going to public safety.
That is
So
correct.
I think if we're going to get as close to apples as we possibly can, we need to start treating it like apples to apples. So that was the point of my exercise. Thank you for participating.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. All right, so some Arizona City comparisons that I wanted to point out about police and fire services and some of the other taxes that other Arizona cities have in place. So there are 36 cities and towns that serve police and fire that have a primary property tax and have a food tax, which the city of Kingman does not have a food tax or a primary property tax. So 36 of them. There are also 8 cities and towns that serve police and fire that have a primary property tax, but no food tax. And there is 1 city that serves police and fire that does not have a primary property tax or a food tax, and that is the city of Kingman. So just, again, a good comparison of all of the cities throughout Arizona.
And to my point, exactly. So thank you.
So when we talk about TPT, there are a couple of options that can be considered when you're thinking about increasing the rate. That is, one of them is that you can place a sunset date on any of the increases that you impose. As a matter of fact, the city council had a sunset date on a tax back in 2013 or 14 when it was adopted. But certainly there is that. So if you chose, let's just say, to increase, say, the TPT by 0.5%, you could say, we want to keep it as a council in place for 10 years, 15 years, whatever that might be. And then in 10 or 15 years, it would be reevaluated. Now, certainly any other council can reevaluate it before then as well, but the intent would be that it would not expire, or it would expire at that certain date. So that is one of the options that council can certainly consider. There is also another option that we look at, and that 28 cities and towns have in place, which is what we refer to as the big ticket option. I know that many of the council members on the current council are aware of this option. We took that to the voters back in 2022. But there are 2 different types of big ticket options that can be considered. So there is basically what this says, and basically why it's used, is to recruit businesses or to retain businesses. And it's important for businesses that maybe sell large dollar items, right? We want our citizens to buy those items here, right? Spend their sales tax dollars here. And those businesses that sell those items want those customers coming to their businesses as well. So that's the point of the big ticket option. So there is a single item option and there is a single item portion option. How does this work? So I'm going to use that 0.5%, just makes it easy to talk through this. So a single item says that if the council increased sales tax from 2.5% to 3%, any single item over some threshold, whatever the council decides, I'm going to use $10,000. If the council says any single item over $10,000, that tax rate would stay at the 2.5%. It would not be charged the 3%. The single item portion says that any purchase up to $10,000 would be charged the 3%, and any amount over the $10,000 would be charged the 2.5%. So that's how that would work. What are the differences as far as to the consumer? And then what would be the differences as far as a fiscal impact to the city? So if we were to use that $10,000 threshold, single item, a customer is going to pay on a $20,000 purchase, they would pay $500 in TPT. If it's the single item portion, they're going to pay $550 in TPT. That's city TPT, not the state TPT, just city TPT. But the fiscal impact to the city, single item would be over $600,000, and single item portion would be about $450,000. So much bigger difference as far as the impact for the city. So a couple of timeline options at that point in my presentation this evening is the council knows exactly the direction that they want to go this evening, then we can certainly, staff will take that guidance and bring back a notice of intent at the March 3rd meeting and start moving through that process. However, if the council wants additional workshops, additional discussions at city council meetings, we can certainly look at that as well, do that through mid-March, and then just move through those next timelines. But a couple of different timelines for you to look at this evening. And with that, I will try to answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Tina. I do notice, and as once again, when we're talking with Jack talking too, you put a sunset date in there, but once again, road maintenance continues forever. In some ways, because a lot of citizens have asked me, well, why don't you put a sunset date on it? I don't have a problem supporting it if it has a sunset date. But that really in the whole long term, yes, we could do it 20 years, it's going to sunset. It wouldn't, we're just we're kicking the tin can down the road is what we're doing.
That's correct, Mayor.
Yeah, so I appreciate you putting that in there. Counselor.
Hi, Tina. Going back to the water lines portion, and that's going to be paid by the rate users. Those roads have to be cut up, correct? To put the new water lines in. Okay, is the water service line rate going to help pay for those roads to get put back in? Or is it just for what's internally being put in by the water?
Councilman Savage, that would be a decision that the council would need to make when you are looking at the rates.
Thanks.
I mean, certainly city staff will bring a recommendation, but ultimately it will be the council's decision on that.
It is a great question, Counselor. Anyone else? Yes, Counselor Dykens.
Same slide, Flying Fortress Parkway. It's estimated at $22 million to go all the way to the Industrial Boulevard. That's today's price. If we try and get grants or other funding and stuff that could take 2 or 3, maybe even 5 years, we're talking that 22 million just shot up. Is that a correct statement?
Councilman Dykens, that is a correct statement.
Okay.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other comments or questions? Vice Mayor?
I'll go. Couple of things just for transparency. The tax, as we are talking about it, the proposal, is the intention to partially fund Flying Fortress, the road, the connector road, or is it to fund streets?
Vice Mayor, as far as the rate increase that council is considering, that would be for street maintenance, for the street maintenance program to continue that ongoing.
Okay, because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there as to what this funding that we are talking about would fund. And so to go on the record and maybe in 2 days on the front page of the paper, we could put that this proposal is to fund our streets and continue with the amazing street preservation that was in the presentation prior to. And yes, sir. Of course.
Just speak to that. I appreciate you pointing that out, and just wanted to reiterate that, because there is the discussion of Flying Fortress, there's a discussion of the road maintenance. The intent of any increase in TPT would be exactly as you're saying, would be to continue the road maintenance. The reason I think Flying Fortress gets brought into this conversation right now is due to timing. We're at a position right now where if we address the issue that will be at our doorstep no matter what in 2030, if we address it now, it gives us that opportunity to take advantage of this timing and be able to construct Flying Fortress. But yes, you're absolutely right. This whole discussion, the TPT increase, the road maintenance, it is about road maintenance and being able to continue that road maintenance far into the future and take care of our roads. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate getting that on the record. I don't know how many people we have signed up, but I expected with the amount of chatter that is on social media that we would have this entire room filled with people that wanted to speak. So in light of that deficit of individuals that are sitting in the chairs, I would like to propose that we do a workshop and give those individuals and the community and the stakeholders an opportunity to come forward and give us other options. Talk to us about, other things that they see that we could be doing better or different. So that's going to be ultimately my proposal, is that we don't necessarily go through the exercise of approving moving forward with this. I would like to see a workshop, and for that particular reason, I want to give the public every opportunity to get out from behind their computers and come into city council and talk to us about our street preservation and our program. Thank you.
I think it's a good idea, Vice Mayor. In fact, I'm sure you've thrown the challenge out there already, so there you go. Actually, does anybody else have any questions for Tina right now? Because we do have 2 citizens that would like to share their comments on this. So, yes. Okay, we'll have the public come up first. Okay. Dr. Rob Christensen again.
Dear Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members, I'm not necessarily opposed to an increase of the sales tax, but I believe that the City of Kingman needs to address the larger sales tax policy when discussing a potential increase of the sales tax. If a sales tax is being used to generate revenue, then the City of Kingman should not use the sales tax to social engineer consumer behavior. What I mean by that is we have one tax for non-restaurant and bar activities and a higher one for restaurant and bar activities. Like I said, if the purpose of the sales tax is to generate revenue, we should have a flat sales tax rate upon all taxable transactions so that local government is not in the business of social engineering consumer behavior. If the Kingman City Council addresses the larger sales tax policy and legislates a flat sales tax rate for all taxable transactions, then I can support a sales tax increase to fund road construction, provided safeguards are placed to ensure that additional revenues are only used for that purpose. If the city cannot accomplish the previous objectives, I will need to oppose a sales tax increase and urge fellow citizens to do the same. In closing, I want to thank you for your time. If you have any questions regarding my comments or the previously submitted correspondence on this issue, please feel free to contact me. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Any questions or comments for Rob? Okay, thank you. We'd like to invite Chairman Travis Lingenfelter, our District 1 Supervisor for Mojave County, to come up.
Mayor, Council, Manager, Attorney Cooper, I'm here representing myself, obviously, but first I just want to say to all of you, thank you for your service to our community. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I appreciate that this council is having this important discussion on transportation infrastructure funding. It's important. I know this is a very tough issue. As we're reminded as elected officials every single day, the further away from a problem one is, the easier it appears to solve, and that's obviously not the case, as we all know, right? There's actually never enough transportation funding, whether you're at the local level or the county level or the state, or probably even the federal level, as we've seen. So we have to do the best we can with what we have, and I think that you're doing a great job. I've seen the improvements that you've done in town. I applaud you. I applaud your vision. I applaud the staff out there doing the actual paving of the streets. There's been an improvement, and I want to thank you for that myself. I've got 2 minutes left. I just want to say, you know, we saw some comparisons with Havasu and Bullhead. You know, on top of only having one revenue source, I think Kingman is also harmed by the fact that we haven't been really aggressive on annexation. And we have about half of the people living inside city limits that you're actually getting HERF dollars for. And, you know, twice as many people hammering your roads every single day. So I want to thank you for annexation discussion and your drive to annex the land where the 700 to 800 acres for the industrial park is going to go. Hopefully the added construction sales tax you'll receive from the folks in that area, ongoing sales tax from the businesses and the industries and the homes, probably not the homes, but the businesses and the industries will help long term. It'll also, I would say, you know, not all funding is for transportation is created equally. There's some, if you do a residential neighborhood, that's not going to really help broaden our tax base, but if you do the skeleton of infrastructure, that's going to help the commercial and industrial businesses to come and to grow and to thrive and to broaden the tax base. That does help us. So I just want to say thank you for your vision. I'm going to keep my comments short. I know that you all have top of your mind our economic development growth, increased mobility across our community. I know that the stretch of Andy Devine from the current industrial park to Andy Devine has like 4 times the crash rate. So that's something that is very dangerous. But overall, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your attention to this. Thank you for really getting out your pencils and being proactive on this. And if there's anything I can do at the county as the supervisor for District 1, any partnership opportunities, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman Lingenfelter. Any questions or comments for Mr. Lingenfelter? Okay. Council, discussion. I know, Councilor Saley, you wanted to continue.
Yeah, I'll go. I wanted to just sort of underline again that the city of Kingman does not have a food tax. We do not have a property tax. And one of the things that we didn't talk about tonight is about 50% of our sales tax is paid by visitors. So of the these totals that we saw earlier, what we're collecting, half of that is paid just by the people who are coming through town. The rest is paid for by the residents. I am in support of what I'm looking at as a road tax. This is really just an unofficial road maintenance tax, 0.5%. I am in favor of the big ticket portion. And I disagree with the vice mayor. I don't think we should kick this can down the road any longer. I think we should move forward with the schedule that Tina Moline put before us. There is an item on May 5th for a public hearing, and I think that's a great opportunity to make that a workshop style public hearing to invite the public, because that will require another vote of this council. And so if the public wants to come forward with better avenues for supporting our streets, they have some new ideas, we could certainly take that into consideration before the final vote. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments or questions?
Ken?
Oh, yes, Councilor Dykens.
Maybe, Tina. The deal with 22 million airway to Industrial Boulevard as today's prices. If we hold off on that pursuing grants and all that, it could be a lot more. Just so happens that we have $22 million sitting in the excess account or general fund or whatever that is. If we were to utilize that money, put it completely towards Airway or Flying Fortress, get it done, open up the retail or commercial corridor there, it develops quickly with luck. That is going to increase revenue for the city as businesses open, sales tax and everything. So that's a plus. So that to me is a wise investment of that 22 million. In turn, we go for we pursued the half-cent increase, then to augment from this point forward that 5% to the streets and roads, which, looking at the numbers, we're talking, and this is where you correct me when I speak wrong, we have 5.4 million in HERF, which I understand isn't all necessarily to streets and road repair, but then we have the potential of 5.9, almost $6 million from that half cent. So between the two, give or take, we're at $11.5 million that potentially is available every year for road improvements and maintenance. Is that correct?
Councilman Dykens, you did a great job summarizing that. That is correct. Between HERF and the restaurant tax, it's about $5.4 million, and then the $5.9 million for that. And it's not just for street maintenance, right? It's for all the things that Jack and his team also do besides just the street maintenance.
But if we do take that 22 million away, it isn't like we're destroying our street repair. We're going to have approximately $11 million every year instead of potentially just 5 that was in the presentation. Is that from either Tina or Jack? I can't remember which slide it was. Is that correct? I'm in favor of pursuing that process along with the half-cent increase.
Well, Councilor Dykens, you bring up very valid points. And the sooner that we enact that half a cent sales tax increase, those monies can start building up that we'll be able to put to replace the 22 million we're going to borrow for Flying Fortress.
Right, and I tend to agree with the time scale or the time frame that was budgeted on here. I agree with the public hearing on May 5th as potentially a great day for the call to the public or for the public to speak and present their pros or cons or other ideas that could benefit. But if we wait for a public hearing, then we're just, again, delaying it, yeah.
Councilman Vice Mayor.
Does that delay?
So, Vice Mayor and Councilman Dykens, I wanted to, I guess, make something clear about the $22 million and then the $5 million that would be generated by the 0.5% sales tax. So the $22 million would completely deplete the reserves. And the new sales tax rate, depending on which schedule we look at, let's just say we use the accelerated schedule and August 1st is when that ordinance becomes effective. We would not begin to start collecting that tax until August 1st. It would take us almost a year to get that $5 million for Jack to use on streets. So it's a year delay from the time that we would utilize those reserves to the time that we would actually collect the monies for streets to be able to utilize that. I just wanted to point that out as you're discussing this.
Thanks, Tina. Comments, Vice Mayor?
So my question was the timeline. it does not have to delay. If we add a work session in, you have 8-1 or 9-1. That, I guess that just depends on how aggressive we are with our scheduling, right?
Vice Mayor, that's correct.
So it does not have to delay, giving the public an opportunity to do a work session. I understand the public hearing, but then we're also making a decision on that day. If we do a public hearing, right after the public hearing is when we're gonna make our decision, correct?
That's correct.
So we don't have time to process anybody's comments or vet anybody's comments that we could if we were in a work session. My second question is the 22 million that Councilor Dykens speaks of, is that all due and payable? Like, do we have to escrow all that money at one time? Can we phase into the project? So I'm just a little uncomfortable with depleting those funds. I understand where you're getting at, and it's valid, very valid. I don't know what does that timetable look like, Manager Walsh?
So, Carl might hit me if we get too far off topic here, but, so as far as Flying Fortress, looking at Flying Fortress from airway out to industrial, we're at about 95% on plans. So those plans would take a few to 6 months to get complete to the 100% plans. And then basically bid that and then go to construction. I'd say we'd probably be looking safely about a year before we'd actually start seeing shovels in the ground, by the time we get everything in place. So about a year out, we'd be able to start construction, and then at that point, we're starting to make those payments.
So that would fit into your timeline of a year before we can start collecting.
Vice Mayor, potentially, it sounds like it could.
Okay, all right. I'm a little more comfortable with that timeline.
And
Yes, Councilor.
Tina, wouldn't that also save us the interest on that 22 million? If we take it from there instead of borrowing it or bonding it, we've still got interest on it. So if we do the 0.5% and take that 22 to do the parkway, we save ourselves whatever we would have paid in interest over however many years the loan would have been.
Councilman Ward, you're correct. It would be a big savings.
One more,
Yes, Councilor Dickens.
and I'm not.
No, you're good. If you have more,
I
that's it's
keep
good.
getting an eye from the attorney, so I don't even look over there anymore. The August 1st, I understand that's when we would start seeing only the beginning of the money. But am I correct in saying that this year's budget already has money budgeted for street and road repairs through June 30th of 2026? Yeah, this year, correct?
Correct.
So we have money all the way to June 30th, and then starting August 1st, we would start accruing, which then all this other money that we've talked about would still keep us comfortable. Now I'll look at Carl. Okay.
I think you all said it. The timing is actually perfect for this. If Vice Mayor mentioned earlier too, I am surprised that there's hardly anybody here in this room. They all complain on social media, our citizens, that they don't want this, but there's no one here to comment on it. You know, it's just amazing that they have the perfect opportunity to share their opinion with City Council, and they don't. Any other thoughts or?
Yeah, I do.
Yes,
I've been
Councilor.
biting my tongue.
Did I open the door for you?
No. Okay, I'm with Rob. All right, I'm good with the half across. I am very concerned about going into the reserve funds, just because it's there for a reason. If there's an emergency, it's not there anymore. But I see the point of the interest savings. Now, I lost my train of thought because it was deep, and it really was. My concern is if we do that, as far as depleting the funds, how soon or what percentage would you be looking at to start pumping back in to get that up? I mean, because once we have it, we're gonna spend it, spend it, spend it. But I want to make darn sure we have something indicating time frame and amount and how we're gonna replenish that. I'm leery where it's at now, just because I'm a hoarder and I like to be prepared. So that's important to me. I like the 0.5% across the board, and I like the cap. I would like to see it at $5,000. We're talking $25, but that $25 as opposed to 10 grand will keep someone from driving to Bullhead or Havasu or Vegas or anything like that. So cap down a little bit. But I'm good with across the board, and my concern is refueling the reserves.
So Councilman Savage, thank you for that. And if I can talk to that just briefly, or Manager Walsh, did you want to cover that, or?
I was going to ask you just to do
Okay.
that. So yeah, if you can speak to, I think in your one slide, you have basically where we're at on reserves right now and where we'd be in 2031. So I think that's, yeah.
And I can go back to that slide. It's not exactly what it will look like if we, okay. So if we didn't deplete the $22 million, let's just say next year, right? Then this is what it would look like in fiscal year 29, 30, 27, 28, all the way out to 31. To your point, Councilman Savage, if we do utilize the $22 million in reserves, we still stay within the 25 to 50% fund balance, but it goes to 28 to 29% for fiscal year 27. And what Manager Walsh and I have talked about is that would be the main focus for fiscal year 27 would be the Parkway, because there wouldn't be a lot of reserves for other necessarily capital projects. And so, however, in fiscal year 28, 29, 30, and 31, we get back to the 30 to 35% level. We don't ever, even looking out past that, we don't get above that. But I appreciate the comments from the audience, because the point of the Parkway, right, is to bring in tax and businesses and jobs and all of the things that we need to generate that additional revenue. So who knows really what it looks like in a few years, but that's where we end up. So thank you for that question.
Can you speak to the across-the-board tax that the gentleman spoke about? Why we don't, why we can't, if we can, all of the above?
Absolutely. So we definitely can, Vice Mayor, we definitely can do an across-the-board tax and eliminate the 1% on streets, eliminate the 2 additional taxes on hotels and motels. I would need to see what that actually, what the statute says particularly on that. But we can definitely do that and instead increase tax by, I don't have this slide, but let's just say 0.75% across the board to recoup, right, the 1% and those 2 other 0.5%. Dedicate the same dollar amounts to those purposes, but instead just have an across-the-board tax on all of the categories. So it's definitely something that we can look at and staff could bring back to you as another option.
Mayor?
Can I clarify that? I was looking at the 0.5% for regular TPT, 5% for restaurant, or 0.5%, or 0.5%, and 0.5% for the hotel. Because the restaurant and bars and the hotel motel, that's being split as the same as them buying in the stores from the tourists, mostly the tourists on the hotel motels. So I don't see a problem keeping it where it's at and adding that 0.5%. That's where I was going with that.
So Councilman Savage looking at increasing the regular rate by 0.5% and then restaurant, bars, and hotel and motels another 0.5%?
Yes. That won't automatically increase them if we just put it on regular TPT, will it?
It will.
Oh, okay.
It'll be
All
across
right.
the board. This is additional on top
Okay.
of these particular categories.
Okay, see, it took that.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, it's confusing. It definitely is confusing.
Okay.
More questions or comments?
Yeah.
Yes, Councilor Walker.
Okay, this council, we've put a lot of money into our roads, and to think that it's gonna end if we don't do something in 2030 just makes me lose sleep at night. I would feel a lot better if we did do a 0.5%, put it towards street maintenance. The sooner we get this figured out, the better, I think. I would be good with let's go to the next hearing, the quickest way to get there, but I'm also okay if we do want to do a workshop. I get what the vice mayor's saying. It gives us more time to take in all the comments that we're not voting on at the same day, so I'm good there. But our largest asset we own as a city is our streets. So, you know, we get bitched at if we fix them, we get bitched at if we don't. So we're better off to get bitched at by fixing them, in my opinion. And also, you know, talking about, Carl's probably looking at me, but I'm gonna keep looking this way. But talking about the Flying Fortress deal, if we do take that 22 million, put it towards Flying Fortress, we save ourselves the interest, and the quicker we build it, the quicker we lock in the price. Because we saw what happened on the off-ramp, what that did from 2017 until today's dollars. It was huge. And to put that kind of percentage on Flying Fortress and waiting 5 or 6 years to build it, it's stupid. We need to get these projects moving forward. So that's where I'm at.
I agree with you. I think the one thing, Councilor Savage mentioned it, but where would you want to put the base for big tickets? He'd mentioned lowering it down to 5,000, and anything above that would drop back down to the
I'm
reduced.
open. I know the city of Phoenix does a tiered system, and they're at 10,000.
Okay.
I would be open to whatever. I mean, let's look at it. And
Council, what are we thinking? 10? So, Councilor Dykens, same thing? So the ceiling would be 10,000, paying the higher tax, and after that would reduce down to lower tax.
Yeah.
Just sort of, we have a meeting of the minds here. Okay? Manager Walsh.
Thank you,
I know
Mayor.
you're just chomping at the bit.
No, you're good. I appreciate it. I wanted to, could you bring up your calendar again, the schedule there? I'm wondering if there isn't an opportunity, there's been discussion for a desire for a workshop. I'm wondering if there is an opportunity, Tina, in April sometime. We've got the 3/4 date, and then we don't have the public hearing until 5/5. I'm wondering if there isn't an opportunity in April to hold a public workshop to be able to have that public comment.
So Carl, if we were to do that after adopting the notice of intent, we would have to go back through the process.
Correct.
Thank you.
So, yes, Councilor Saley.
Well, I'm wondering if on May 5th, if something comes up that we want to consider, we want more time to consider, we could table the item, couldn't we, until the next meeting to give us time to think about it?
You'd have to wait,
Everything would start over again.
You'd have to do, the whole process again, I would guess, if something changed.
I think if something changed, you'd have to do the whole process over. You might be able to table it to the following meeting without renotice, but I would, only if nothing changed, but I would urge caution in that sort of situation, because you want to avoid any procedural hurdles that may just become entanglements later.
Okay, I was just looking for a compromise, but I'd like to stick with this timeline and use the public hearing as the opportunity for the feedback.
So.
Can we,
The top timeline. Yes. Okay. Yeah, Vice Mayor.
so if we do the public hearing on 5/5, that would be a regular council meeting, is that correct?
Yes, Vice Mayor.
So could we do a workshop at 3 o'clock
We,
earlier? in the
Vice
day?
Mayor, we can, but if anything comes out of that meeting that the council might want to change, then it restarts the process.
All right, so we're back to like March, the end of March. So I just think that the public should have an opportunity, and I know some of the public is here, and I appreciate that very, very much. But I just, in my heart, I just want to say we gave the public every opportunity to be heard. And that's just where I'm coming from with the public hearing. So I will do what council's pleasure is, the majority. If you guys don't want to have a public hearing and don't want to hear, a workshop, and then I think we need to be able to process that information to make an informed decision. So that's where I'm coming at.
Well, and when you look at that top timeline, step number 2 says at a public hearing during that council meeting, and then down to step 4, another public hearing. So as long as we get the word out, we're giving the public a lot of opportunity to comment. They should, if they step forward. Once again, all we can do is invite them. So I support timeline number 1 also. So, Counselor Dykens, it looks like you have a question.
I just want to make sure I'm reading that right. On the very top, step 2, council adopts a notice of intent to consider increasing sales tax rates at a public hearing. So that is officially a public hearing on March 3rd.
During our council meeting.
Councilman Dykens, it is not a public hearing.
Oh.
Part of the process is you are required to adopt a notice of intent at a regular council meeting to set the public hearing date, which would be May 5th. You're welcome.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification, because like tonight, we have a public hearing.
Hold it as a. Mayor,
Am I
if
wrong
may.
on that?
Yes.
So just to clarify, we could, I mean, as you'll see in tonight's agenda, we have a number of items that are consent agenda, a number of items that are regular agenda, and then some that are specifically public hearing. Generally, we treat our regular agenda items as a public hearing as well. So this action item to set that public hearing could be treated not as an official public hearing, but definitely we can accept comment at that meeting, hear those comments, and then that gives you the opportunity to amend or tweak your notice of intent prior to putting that out. Is that?
We would close. We would still have to do a little bit of adjustments that may adjust the timeline. But that would give another opportunity. I think short of doing some sort of what the mayor's looking for, I think you could run into some adjustments, but I'm not sure how you could get a public hearing sooner than that day.
I see. You're not labeling it a public hearing, but once again, we always have comment,
Correct.
public comment on a certain line item,
Correct.
as 2 gentlemen that shared tonight on this item.
So basically, it's just one more meeting for timeline number 2, which we could invite stakeholders, we could invite those big ticket business owners to hear if what we're doing is what they're asking for and if they would support that.
Absolutely.
That's all I'm asking, council, is just one meeting, and we can invite the stakeholders, and we can hear. When we did the sign ordinance, it was very effective. We got to hear from all the stakeholders. We got to, make a decision based off of public input, and that's all I'm asking for, is for one more meeting, council.
Does that step number 4 accomplish that for you?
Step number
Yeah,
2.
on the top one, hold the public hearing?
No,
So you want an extra one
I do.
besides that?
I do, but it doesn't sound like,
Mayor, so that process would push us back 1 month?
it does not have to, correct? That doesn't change our month.
So Vice Mayor, if I'm understanding correctly, at the March 3rd meeting, we would still, no.
Looking at your step action for the second scenario, if we
Oh,
did
for the
a
second
workshop or work session on March 26th, we would still stay in line for 8-1. It would push it to 9-1? Okay, I saw the or there, so I thought maybe.
Yeah, the March 26th is sometime in March holding that,
Okay.
holding that work session, so.
So there's no way to bunch that up to where it has the same effect as timeline number 1.
If you were to hold a work session prior to March 17th, maybe a week or so before March 17th, to give us time to get the notice of intent for the March 17th meeting, then we would still meet the 8-1 timeline.
Because that is not my intent. My intent is not to push it out any farther. My intent is to stay with the schedule. So whatever we could do to stay with an 8-1, if it's not, doesn't impact, I would like council to consider. And mainly it's for the stakeholders. I mean, I want the support of the people that are selling cars and the people that are selling furniture. And I want those major stakeholders in our community to understand what it is that we're doing and to have an opportunity to have some input. That's all I'm asking.
Good comment, Vice Mayor.
I think that makes sense. That way they don't say we tried to shove it down their throat. So
Okay,
if we can somehow squeeze that meeting in there,
before March 17th would be the key.
yeah.
Yes, Carl?
I was just wondering if there's, I don't know how council will go with this, have the staff request those folks to come in, staff, not a council meeting, to get input from those stakeholders. Then we could, much more flexible option to get that information in, and then you can get that information digested and put into the,
Could we have staff and not a quorum of council?
that's not gonna happen. But
It could very well happen.
Carl, you have to just assign three of us.
if you assign 3, then you've created a subcommittee,
Oh,
which
you
then
can't
is
do
a
that.
public meeting.
I'll support that.
There you go.
I could support that. Reluctantly, but I could support that.
So, that actually is moving back to number 1 then, timeline number 1. By not having, right, Vice Mayor? Because staff would invite those in to talk to them?
Vice Mayor, if I may, Mayor, Vice
Yes, of
Mayor.
course.
So if we use the bottom timeline and follow the notice of intent at the March 17th meeting and follow that first date of the 2 dates on that timeline, we still meet the August 1st. We still meet that August 1st date for the rates to become effective. And the reason I'm proposing that is that in order for us to meet with people, get the meeting set up, get all of everything compiled and meet that March 3rd deadline, it's going to be difficult to get all of the data together for the agenda item for March 3rd. So if we can allow us a week or so to meet with those individuals, we can still meet that August 1st deadline and just have the notice of intent on the March 17th date. Then we'll make sure that everything is in order to bring to you instead of trying to rush to try to meet with everyone in the next week, which is what it would have to be to meet that timeline.
So you'll compile a summary and then present to us on the 17th.
Does that
Yes,
work,
I think that's
Manager
doable.
Walsh?
And just comparing the 2 timelines, basically, I think the difference that you're looking at, if we can pull that together, and if that's the direction council wants to go, that's what we'll do. But I think ultimately the last date that council would see this, you see a difference of 5/5 and 5/19 if my eyes are working. So basically, it's either the first meeting in May or the second meeting in May would be the last time really that it would come before council at that public hearing, unless something changed in those. So we'd be looking at a difference of 2 weeks if we were able to, if council wanted to go that direction.
Council? Are we along? Yes.
I'll
Councilor
just,
Saley.
I want to disclose that I won't be here on the 17th of March for this item. So if it get, I mean, I don't know if it matters, but I won't be here.
Counselor, I think you hit I think I'm out of town that time too.
That's the notice of intent, correct?
That would, Vice Mayor, yes, that would be the notice of intent.
Okay.
Okay. Those 2 weeks of March, remember too, are our spring break for Kingman Unified School District. So, just so everybody knows, that comes into play. So, do we
Mayor,
want to? Yes.
Just to clarify on that notice of intent, so just looking at the process here, that notice of intent, really, that's going to define then what is adopted on the 15th, because if that notice of intent changes between either the 3rd or the 17th, whichever day that's adopted, and May 5th or 19th, then we start that process over. So that meeting is important in that's when that gets adopted, so. And the structure of that TPT increase, any one-ticket items, anything like that, all gets adopted on that March meeting. And then the public hearing is, if everything goes as council desires, then that would be when it's approved, but any changes would require that to start over.
So we need to hold that date, that 3/17. Step number 3 on the bottom.
My comment was geared with at least 2 of you not being here.
Correct.
That meeting is critical in determining how that TPT is worded, how it's set.
Counselor Walker.
Would it kill, I mean, let's just push the whole thing back a month.
Mean to the target
Everything,
date of
just the
9/1,
whole-
what's
the
it
whole
gonna?
calendar's add another month into it.
Is it gonna really
That way we're
affect
not
us?
rushed.
Yeah.
I mean, 1 month is not gonna kill us if we're moving in the right direction. We're all sitting here crunching calendars, and let's just add a month, and are we good then? Is that
Tina,
staff?
is that
Good
gonna
for
hurt
staff?
us?
Is that better for staff, worse for staff?
Staff will support whichever direction council would like to go. But we can make either of them work.
So do we want to go with that?
I
know,
support
Councilor
that.
Sadie, I know you'd like to do it sooner than later. I understand that.
Oh, I do too, but 1 month's not gonna kill us if we're
And
having-
money, yeah.
trying to be transparent with the stakeholders and making sure we do this right.
I agree.
So, are you talking 1 or 2?
Neither, just add a month to whichever one you want.
Well, it's gonna
I don't
basically
care.
be number 2 because it falls to 9/1 instead of 8/1. I mean, if you're wanting to narrow it down.
Just asking a question.
No, but you bring up a valid point. So, is that direction we want to go, council?
I'll
I know,
support that.
Vice Mayor, I know you're
Yeah.
feeling that.
I'm good with that.
Councilor Dykens? 8/1 or 9/1?
Go to the other two first.
Councilor Ward? Okay. Councilor State, I think I already know your answer.
If we did move it to 9/1, then we would legitimately, instead of a staff meeting with the others, we would then legitimately have a true workshop for anybody to come or not come. Correct?
And no one can say that we have not done our due diligence trying to get the message out
Okay, I'm good with that.
or participation. I mean, what else can we do? Okay, so I think we're good with the 9/1 date, and that way it gives us that extra time.
And just confirming that a work session is what the council wants as well.
Yes. And of course, with the idea of a $10,000 mark. Or yes, as far as that rating, yes. So council, do we need to vote on this, Carl? Or do we have, the staff have enough direction on what we want to do?
We're not making any decisions tonight. We're just trying to get a schedule formulated, so I don't see a need
Okay.
to schedule anything right now.
Thank you, Tina.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members.
I think for all of us, and to echo this, I'm sure you echo it too, we hate to have to do this. But for our roads to stay in a good state of repair, this is what we need to do. And of course, others ask, well, why don't you take it from somewhere else? But we don't have the luxuries that our sister cities do. This is the only way we can actually raise funds. So I appreciate everybody's participation tonight. Okay, item number 5, public hearings. 5A, public hearing on resolution number 5600, approval and acceptance of Federal Transit Administration Rural Public Transit Grant. This is a request for the council to adopt resolution number 5600, authorizing the city manager or his or her duly authorized designee to sign all documents required for application and acceptance of Federal Transit Administration, FTA, Section 5311, Rural Public Transit Grant, and Section 5339, Bus and Bus Facilities Grant funding, necessary to fund a portion of Kingman Area Regional Transit, known as CART, administrative, operational, and capital expenses for Kingman for federal fiscal years beginning October 26, 2026, and October 2027. The City Council will consider funding requests and finalize the local match for the transit program during its annual budget processes. The budget for each fiscal year will be developed and presented to Council during the corresponding budget cycle. Staff recommends approval. And Sherry, welcome tonight.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the council. So this, our grant that funds our operating and administrative costs is on a 2-year cycle. It's the Section 5311 grant. And this grant just opened in the end of December, and this year they're doing something different. They're combining the section 5339, which is bus and bus facilities. They've combined those two programs into one, and they'll now be on a 2-year cycle. So one of the requirements of the grant of the program is that we hold a public hearing, and that's why it's listed as a public hearing today. The amounts that we're requesting for the first year is for one vehicle, and then our admin, our preventive maintenance cost to continue on with the current levels of service. For year 2, we've increased that the operating cost to account for 2 additional full-time transit operators in the event that we are able to, so that we can support any future transportation out to the airport industrial park. I know that we're all still wanting to get that going. The local match for administrative is 20%, operating is 42%, preventive maintenance 20%, other capital, which is in year 2, that's for upgrading our surveillance and vehicle locating equipment. The existing equipment is becoming unreliable, so it's important we do that, and we'll be including that on the next CIP for fiscal year 28. That match is 20%, and then the match for our vehicles is a sliding scale of 10 to 20%. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have regarding this.
Sherry, I think it's important to note that the only reason why we can do CART is because of these federal grants that we receive.
Yes, that's correct. So we're a subrecipient of ADOT. We submit the application to ADOT. They then submit their application to the FDA based on what their recipient, subrecipient requests are. And then the funding gets awarded after they receive their notification from FTA. And if it weren't for this grant, you're correct. It's a huge amount that it covers, and we probably would not have public transportation service here in Kingman without it.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Vice Mayor.
Sherry, can you tell me on the local match, does Mojave County participate in any matching funds for our program?
No, nothing.
And we do operate a yellow line, is
Yes.
that correct? And
Yes,
that's
we do. We've been
out in
operating
the
that
county?
yellow line since inception in 2003. We've been operating service out to the county. Several years ago, and I don't have that data with me, but I think the last year, there were maybe 6 years, 5 or 6 years, that when LTAF 2 funding was available, the county portion, it had to be used for public transportation, and they didn't provide public transportation, so they would divide their apportionment between Kingman, Bullhead City, and Lake Havasu City. Once the LTAF 2 funding ended, and I think that might have been in 2008 or 9, then there was no contribution made whatsoever.
Do we know what percentage of riders ride that yellow line?
The percentage of riders is approximately 35%, I want to say.
Okay. And we're looking to expand out into the industrial park?
We're hoping to be able to expand out into the industrial park. We've been trying to get some support from the employers out there, make sure that it's something that we can do that would be feasible. We don't want to be running empty buses out there. I know we definitely want to try and meet up with the new manufacturing center that Mojave College has out there now. And so I've included that additional request in our year 2 projections so that hopefully we'd be able to get the additional funding. Now, historically, ADOT hasn't been awarding dollars for expansion. They've just been awarding for continuation of existing services. And the reason for that is that they receive nearly twice as much funding request as they receive funding. So they've had to deny many applicants of their full apportionments. We've been a very successful program in good standing, and they have consistently awarded us our full request. But for expansion, unless something changes with their request to FTA and they get a larger apportionment, that part, I'm not sure if we'd be able to be awarded for that, but hopeful in our request that they would see the need.
Okay, and I know we're working on a master transportation hub with the county, so I'm hoping we're
Yes,
going to
we
get
are.
some participation from the county for all those years we've been transporting county residents, so thank you.
So am I, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Anybody else like to comment or ask Sherry a question? Councilor Dykens?
What was the percentage that you said that was the local match versus the federal match?
That depends on the use of the funds. So administrative costs is an 80-20 split. Our local match is 20%. Operating expenses are 58-42. We provide the 42%. Preventive maintenance in the last several years used to be funded with the 42% local match. ADOT was able to change that as a capitalized cost, and now they fund that at 80-20 when the funds are available, and they've been able to separate those funds, which is one of the reasons why they've been able to capitalize that, because they've been moving some of our other capital into the other funding program I mentioned that is combined this year, the 5339. That's for buses and bus facilities. So by moving the portion of of the recipients' requests for vehicles, moving that capital over to the other funding program, that's opened up more capital within the 5311 program that they've been able to help the agencies as capitalizing that preventive maintenance cost. You're welcome.
Any
Mayor.
other questions or comments for Sherry?
If I may, Mayor, real quick,
Yes,
if I
Mayor.
might just be
Yes.
able to provide an update, appreciate Vice Mayor, talking about the CART Hub. We actually, the mayor and I did meet with Chairman Lingenfelter about a week or so ago, discussing about that, and we've gotten, made a lot of headway. We're actually working on a draft agreement that we'll be sending over for their review. So, yeah, county's been great working with us on that, so thank you.
Yes, we've had a lot of support with the county. The county manager participated with us when we were doing our long and short range transit plan, and with the site selection options for the transit center as well. So we have had support from the staff.
Well, Sherry, representing council, I want to thank you for all that you do and taking care of our citizens and giving this valuable resource to them to be able to, and of course your staff too. I've never heard anything negative about any of our bus drivers.
I'm glad to hear that.
It's always been positive.
I get very minimal complaints, I have to say. So, and they come in contact with a lot of people. They do a fantastic job.
Well, please pass our thanks on to them too.
Absolutely, I will.
So
Thank
we
you.
appreciate that. Okay, this is a public hearing, so I'll open a public hearing. Public hearing is open. Are there any people that would like to speak on this? Yes. Chairman Lingenfelter.
Mayor Watkins, Vice Mayor Samley, Council. I wasn't planning on speaking on this, but I did want to address the point. I remember being on council and asking, where's the county's contribution on this? And the former county manager didn't think that was necessary. I would note that the college is on the route, the yellow route, and I don't think that they are contributing to this service either. I do recognize that the county needs to put up something as far as a contribution, and what we're doing is there's a piece of county-owned property between the animal shelter and the library district where we're going to be working with the city on a property donation, hopefully, and I look forward to supporting that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman Lingenfelter, for bringing that forward. Is there anybody else that would like to share a comment or question from the public? Okay, seeing none, we will close this public hearing. Council, any more thoughts or comments? Seeing none, can we have a motion then approving resolution number 5600?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We already did Department Report 6A, so 6B, legislative update. Yes, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Talking with Tom Dorn, he is in committee tonight testifying on our behalf regarding the RTAC bill that's down there right now. So he is unable to join us this evening, but wants to let you know that he is working hard on our behalf. So.
Thank you, City Manager. Item 6C, report to council on Wallach Ranch Stormwater Retention Basin. Mike, thanks again for being here.
Help.
It doesn't want to go big.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council. There have been some recent, resident complaints or whatever about the stormwater basin at Wallach Ranch holding water. I'm doing a little report here to explain why that's occurring and possible options for addressing it. This is a picture of the basin. As you can see, I think that's the Google image from like October of last year, so it was already holding water at that point. This slide basically just shows how this basin is supposed to work. The top portion of the basin is actually what engineers refer to as detention, which means there's a low-level outlet, so the water drains out through these culverts here and into this wash and out towards Mojave Wash. The lower portion, so the culverts are about 4 feet deep, and then there's another 3 feet that's excavated in the bottom of the basin that's below the culvert, so that portion does not drain out. Ideally, it would just perk out with the sandy soil. This slide and the next slide are basically just graphs that show what the soil conditions are like. If you can see the little red arrows that are on these graphs, that's at 7 foot deep. And what you'll see is it points to what's referred to as clay sand, or it's sand with clay particles in it. And basically the clay will prevent the water from draining out of the basin. This map to the left here just shows where these soil samples were taken at. And again, this is a similar slide showing at 7 feet of depth. You have clay, sand, and silty clay with clay particles preventing the water from draining out of the basin. Possible solutions, you can pump the basin dry. You can use a trash pump like you get down at Home Depot or someplace and pump it dry, or you can install a permanent pump, which would you could either have one that kicks on automatically, or you could go out there and throw a switch on and it would pump it out. That sort of option is a high maintenance option. Usually people don't like to do that because Jack's Crews and those guys have to go out there and maintain the pump whenever something's going on with it. You could put in a dry well. This is a common practice here in Arizona. The downside of that is there's only a few qualified contractors. Recently, in the last few years, I think we've actually had trouble getting somebody from Phoenix to come up and drill dry wells. So that's one downside. The other thing is they can get clogged, and if they clog, then they're pretty much ineffective and they don't do what they're supposed to do. Finally, we could do a project to provide another low-level outlet or like a bleeder pipe, which means we would have to deepen the wash and also get some property to do some channel improvements out to Mojave Wash. So that's everything that I've got so far. I'll be happy to take any questions. Oh, I do want to point out, this is in my slide, that we did change the drainage regs about a year or so ago so that the city would no longer be accepting any retention basins for maintenance. So that's the one upshot here is that this wouldn't be on us to fix anymore. The drainage regs the draft regs that are being circulated right now also have some measures in there that address the drain time for the basin. So if you guys have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions for Mike? Yes, Councilor Savage.
Hi, Mike, thanks. You showed us soil test results.
Mm-hmm.
And you gave us 3 alternatives that are all gonna cost money or not work very well, so why was it even allowed to be built the way it is? I know that might be before you or not, I don't know, but that, to me, was a waste of money if it wasn't done right the first time.
Well, there's a few things to consider. Number one is our drainage regs we currently have actually do not have anything in them about drain time for the basin, which is disappointing. So there was really no way for us to enforce any kind of drain time requirements or that sort of thing for the basin. As you pointed out, also, I just started a couple of years ago, so obviously this is something that I would try to address before it got built. I did notice that Traven is here from Engel Homes. I don't know if he wants to come up here and talk or.
If I might add a little bit to it.
Yes,
I
Manager.
appreciate, Mike, the presentation. Since the presentation, I guess before Mike started on it, I have spoken with Engel Homes. They've expressed an interest in assisting us with this as well. So our public works crew are working with the storm coming in. We didn't want to go out and drain it before the storm came in, but ultimately we're looking at draining it. Jack's crews will have a trash pump out there to drain it, and then Engel Homes will be working on a solution that will help provide a more permanent solution there. But I don't want to put words in Travin's mouth if he wants to comment on that as well.
Yeah.
Traven, welcome.
Travel, Engel Homes. Thank you, council. Hate to say it, but a lot of these things are like gambling, right? There's these ponds all over town that were built the exact same way and they happen to drain. The enemy of them is either caliche, rock, or clay, right? And it's kind of, you can drive around town, most of them do well, few of them don't drain at all, right? We won the lottery with this one, right? So what we're gonna do is, you can go over there right now, it's full. Right? We just had a storm and this pond fills up really quick and drains really slow. The city's gonna get a pump over there. We're gonna pump the water out. When it dries out, what we're gonna do is bring a big excavator in to the bottom of it and try. You saw what it was at 7 feet, right? But we want to see if we can punch down deeper than that. Maybe we dig down to 17 feet deep and we get into gravel or we get into sand that doesn't have clay. We could excavate some of that material out, and at that point, theoretically, we get rid of the clay out of the bottom of it, and it could drain. So that's right now what we're proposing. The city's gonna pump it, and then we're gonna get a piece of equipment in there and kind of do some exploratory surgery on it.
Thank you. Thank you, Traven. Oh,
Mayor,
yes.
before you go, Traven, so Manager Walsh, we have several of these that we've taken in, right? That has been kind of our MO, that we take in these properties after the developers put them in?
That has been basically the process historically, is yes, these retention basins in the past have been dedicated to the city, dedicated to the public, and then we take them over and maintain them.
Right, so we maintain them, it's our burden. So I want to thank Engel Homes for being so able to work with us. I want to thank you because, technically you don't have to, because these are our retention basins, correct? As we have many of them around the city. So I guess my concern is, hopefully, they're not all Engel Homes detention basins, but then on the other hand, I hope they are, because then you guys will be so willing to work with us.
Right. I mean, to Mike's point, and Tim, is moving into the future, the city, there's no scenario where the city's gonna be in this same situation, right? Because the rules that are being proposed will require a homeowners association to own and maintain that basin, right? So
And I
it's not
understand
just-
that
yeah.
if we move in that direction. However, we still have several out there that are ours.
You guys won the lottery on those
That's
ones,
where
yeah.
I'm concerned. I'm concerned for the future and those that we already own. So the purpose was to thank you for working with the city, and then we've got to figure out if we have any of those that are a problem, what we're going to do with them. So I appreciate that.
Thanks, Trevin. Any other comments, Councilor Dykens?
Is this the one that the gentleman came a meeting or two ago that was really concerned about the mosquitoes?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yes, Trevin?
To that point, we have a superintendent that manages that subdivision, that also lives in that subdivision. And for what it's worth, there's things called mosquito pellets that you can go throw in. So after every rain and periodically, we do dose that with mosquito pellets so that theoretically we're not got a bunch of larvae in there growing and just waiting for the weather to get right. So for whatever that's worth.
Thank you, Trevin. Councilor Dykens? Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you. Moving on then to 6D, Department Report concerning the relocation of the Mesa Verde Mobile Home Park driveway entrance. Mike?
Click it on the top. Oh, here we go. All right. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, this is a report to address some concerns of the resident that lives in the Mesa Verde Mobile Home Park. I wanted to provide some background. I've got a handful of notes here that kind of explain how we got to where we're at on this. The city regulations on a major arterial street like Wallapai Mountain Road say that all driveway entrances have to be at least 200 feet away from the intersection. The main reason is to avoid instances where the traffic stacks up and it blocks the entrance to the driveway so people can't get in and out of there. Driveway locations are a combination of traffic safety and landowner preferences. I can tell you, in the short time that I've been here, driveways have become a major headache for me. It's always something it's half traffic safety and half negotiation with the landowner. Usually, you try to work with them the best you can. The Mesa Verde landowner so far has refused to engage the city regarding the driveway location. We've been in contact with him for many months now, and they've yet to engage us. I wanted to point out the Mesa Verde final plat was approved by the county in the late 1970s and was annexed by the city in 1982. So we inherited this driveway entrance. It wasn't like somebody from the city previously approved it. We've had 2 traffic studies that point to the fact that at some point in the near future, we're going to need a traffic signal at this intersection. We've also had numerous resident inquiries regarding the traffic signal, and including inquiries that we discussed at Traffic Safety Committee. So a traffic signal will be installed at this intersection regardless of any new development taking place at that location. Which means that the relocation of the driveway entrance is pretty much inevitable. I guarantee you, once we put the traffic signal in, the people in that mobile home park would basically be begging the city to please relocate the driveway because there would be no way to get in and out of it with all the traffic there. We engaged a consultant in September of last year to begin the design of the intersection improvements and the traffic signal design. Those plans, I'm hoping they're going to be done by the end of this month. Engineering has put a line item in the FY '27 budget to install the traffic signal. So that would just be something up to council to decide whether we want to do it next fiscal year, or the following, or whenever it works best. On this map, there's a couple of options for the relocated entrance. When we first met with our consultant, they preferred this location here. Basically because what they were trying to do is match these drive aisles in the mobile home park. If you move it further north to do this one, you're gonna be at this little bend in the road here. And so the driver has to turn their head a little more to see the oncoming traffic. And there are additional trees in the way that kind of compromise the sight distance. However, after further consideration, we visited the site and we feel that that driveway entrance works just as well as this one. And it's also further away from the future convenience store driveway. So that being said, the one thing to consider that I'm always a little wary of is at some point, the landowner might decide he wants to play ball, and then it's going to be more up to him than other folks as to where the driveway entrance goes. So that's just something to consider. The other thing too is you're always going to make somebody mad when you relocate the driveway. You know, if you put it here, you're going to make somebody mad. If you move it up here, you're going to make a different person mad. So just something to consider. I'll be willing to take any questions if you guys have any.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions for Mike? Yes, Councilor Savage. Oh, you just turned your mic.
I was on the whole time, just joking. Question for you. Knowing that there's going to be a traffic interchange like there, a lot of the roads that especially are going to have a left-hand turn, are you going to put a median curb in the middle of the street to keep the traffic from Circle K going across at a short distance to go north on Eastern? Or is it going to be further north as far as the exit where you have driveway?
You're talking about
Yeah, so you're looking at the driveway there. So is there going to be any curb or lane left turn lane? So people aren't trying to shortcut through right there and have another exit further north?
I don't think so. I think what we've talked about as far as improvements on Eastern is we're going to widen this intersection.
Okay.
So that you have dedicated southbound right turn lane and a dedicated southbound left turn lane.
Okay.
As far as a median or anything like that here to prevent people from making left turns, we haven't really looked into that.
And if I'm correct, the current entrance off of Wallapai Mountain Road, that will be permanently closed?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Manager Walsh, I know you and I went out and actually physically walked this area. And didn't we come up with the second one, the farther one to the north, that would be better?
Yeah, and I think, sorry, Mayor, that's correct. Looking at the site, I think both of them from a site distance perspective will suffice. The further north one actually is more beneficial in that it's further, as Mike pointed out, it's further away from that proposed entrance for the Circle K. So you have less turning conflicts by having it further to the north.
Right. And of course, we agreed we're gonna have to take out 3 trees, but also there's 2 dead ones farther to the south. We're gonna replant those and I think put 1 more tree in, if I remember right.
So yeah, those are all things that we're looking at considering and
Correct.
will be addressed when we get to those plans. Just to, I guess to clarify one thing, the city, it's the city's right of way, so the city controls access onto and off of the right of way. As Mike pointed out, we have reached out to the property owner to try and coordinate with them on an entrance, but ultimately, the city controls that right of way and where that entrance goes. So we can determine, hey, this is a better location for that safety wise. And ultimately, that's what this is. It's an engineering safety decision on where to place that entrance.
So just to add one thing with that, when you change a person's entry point, they can make claims of a diminution in value and claim damages for changing that point. So I have been in contact with the attorney for them. Communication was good, then there were some medical issues with that attorney, so I haven't really heard a whole lot lately. But just FYI, there could be a claim for some sort of damages that this has reduced the value of their property. Whether it's legitimate or not, that's questionable, and that's what you debate. But I just wanted to make sure you understood that there's a potential down the line for something along that lines.
Okay, thanks, Carl. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that once again. Item number 7, announcements by mayor, council members, and city manager. Manager Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing tonight.
Councilor Walker.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Councilor Savage.
Yes, please. Thank you, Mayor. On February 7th, the mayor and I were able to go to a nice little reception dinner and a tour of the Boys and Girls Club. That place is fabulous. I was very impressed. They're maxed out at 130 students right now with a waiting list already, and they're going to be expanding on that. Fraternal club that I'm with already had planned a fundraiser for them in April. I was able to procure another anonymous donation of $1,500 to go on top of what we're going to be doing for that, but it was something I firmly believed in. And I was lucky enough to meet the director and my kids when they came into this lobby to talk to us, that we kind of helped them and took them under their wings. But Mayor, I was impressed. If you guys get a chance, please check out the Boys and Girls Club. It's worth it.
Thank you, Councilor Savage, for mentioning that. I had forgot that, yeah, that was a nice evening that we had there. Thank you. Councilor Ward, Councilor Saley, Councilor Dykens, Vice Mayor.
Nothing tonight.
I have one more comment. Actually, last Thursday, Manager Walsh and I had our first coffee with the mayor from 8:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. And actually, this room was almost full. I think there was a couple empty chairs, but that was about it. So I think we had good participation, some good questions were asked, and hopefully we answered those. And of course, we are continuing that the second Thursday of every month at 8:30 to 10 o'clock. What's interesting, I think there were 6 donuts altogether, and I think only 1 dozen got eaten. Lots of coffee, but no one ate any donuts. But anyway, it was a it was a fun morning, and once again, we're trying to let our citizens know that we are concerned about their opinion, and please come and share their thoughts with us. That's all I have for tonight. Item number 8, council requests for future reports and updates. Okay, seeing none, we are adjourned. Thanks again for being here tonight.